Ladies and gentlemen, you know who this podcast is brought to you by. That's right, Black Rifle Coffee. Or if you're interested in trading stocks, BRCC on the New York Stock Exchange. Pretty awesome 2 weeks ago that a business / brand, I don't know which one to describe it as, probably both, started because of somebody's passion, ended up getting listed on the stock exchange. I know very few people who have been able to do something like that, and I'm extremely proud of my relationship, not only with Evan and the other founders, but with the brand. If you want to support an amazing company that makes great coffee, their t-shirts are fucking awesome. They make great hats, their mugs. I mean, they've got just about everything from like stuff to lounge around at the house on the couch while watching the snow fall to driving in your car, and Yeti tumblers, fill in the blank, coffee subscriptions that can come to your house, a variety of different roasts. Just go to blackriflecoffee.com and check it out. My guest today, man, I don't know how today's episode is going to be received. And I am completely okay with that because my guest today is Chase Cannon. You may never have heard of Chase Cannon because he's a very normal dude, just like I am, who is going through a very abnormal situation. He's not a celebrity. He's not a sports star, but I bet you that he would want to be. I'm speaking for you a little bit, Chase. But what he's going through right now is, by all accounts, and it seems to be agreed upon by the medical professionals that have treated him, is a very severe and adverse reaction to the COVID vaccine. Now, we started off this episode talking about how there's probably a chance that people will label this episode as somehow being anti-narrative or anti-vaccine, which couldn't be farther from the truth. I'm not anti anything other than ill-informed or uninformed decisions. I think that people should have access to all of the information, good, bad, ugly, everything in between. That is how I think people can make the best decisions. Now, if you want to hear about success stories when it comes to people and their exposure to the vaccine, it's not hard to find because the vast majority of people have nothing but positive things to say about it. And I completely support their message as well. Chase's story is different. I'm not even going to attempt to dig into it because he does a great job of doing that. But I think hearing about people who are not living the common narrative that most of us are hearing is a very, very important thing. And with that, I will leave it to Chase to talk for himself. Episode 222 with Chase Cannon. Enjoy.
Okay, got the red smoke.
Gun run, north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
So before we started, you were talking about the things you didn't want to talk about. Let's talk only about those. Tell me everything that you're worried about getting in trouble for.
Oof. That's a lot.
Yeah. I'll be honest. If they haven't come after me yet for the ridiculous things that come out of my mouth, they're probably not going to come after you. So I want to do, I'm going to put a disclaimer on this episode. Actually, it's not a disclaimer. I'm going to put a clarification because I think I know what we're going to end up talking about. And I think when it comes to, actually, instead of beating around the bush, we're going to talk about, at some point in time, your experience with the COVID vaccine. I don't know why there seems to be a desire to, I'm going to use the word suppress, even though I don't know if that's the correct word, to suppress information or experiences that are different than the narrative that I, in my own opinion, see being pushed, which is it is your duty as an American to go get vaccinated, or there's something wrong with you. If you don't agree with what we are saying, then you don't believe in science, and versions of that. What I wanted to clarify for people when they listen to this is that when I saw your story on social media, you made a post, and actually Greg Anderson reposted what you had sent to me. And I had briefly seen it because I was scrolling through my messages and I saw his post and I reread it and I was looking at it. In my mind, my thought in reaching out to you was, why can't you sit down and have a conversation with somebody about their experience? I thought it was, from the little of what you posted, I thought it was very interesting. And I think that there's a chance that people will look at our conversation and say, we are trying to push an anti-vaccine narrative. So what I wanted to say, not a disclaimer, but just a clarification is, I am not an anti-vaccine person in general. I am highly vaccinated from my time in the military. I know that you had the desire to go into the military, and let me tell you what you're going to miss out on your first day at boot camp if you don't go. It's a gauntlet of what sounds like air cannons that are going to be jabbed into both of your arms. Well, this is what happened to me. And they finish it with like the swing of the penicillin needle right into your ass, and you're just sitting there like, with blood coming down both shoulders. The number of vaccines that I got, actually even before going into the military, I was vaccinated by my parents. My children are vaccinated. I was vaccinated while I was in the military. I am not an anti-vaccine person. I'm an non-educated decision person. And I think to make an educated decision, you have to be able to explore all information from every different angle and make a decision based off of that. I don't understand why, maybe I'm incorrect, but it seems to me like there is a true desire and effort to suppress information that doesn't go along with that narrative. So I in no way, shape, or form am trying to make this an anti-vaccine episode. I want it to be your experience and what you went through in your life, because it is a possible outcome should you choose to vaccinate yourself or people that, your kids or loved ones. And I think that's important to be able to talk about that without pushing any message whatsoever. That was my disclaimer / clarification. Chase, do you have any disclaimer / clarifications?
Yeah, I think you handled it.
Yeah. What sucks is that you have to say that. Is that I felt as I was thinking about today when we were sitting down, getting ready to talk, I was like, oh, if I actually don't say that, it'll give people the opportunity to say the exact opposite, which is not what I'm going for. So,
I mean, yeah, my post made, a couple people mad, so totally get that.
What did it make them mad about? Actually, define the post, if you would, or describe the post, and then I would like to hear the reaction.
For sure. The whole story or just the post in general?
The post in general, people's reaction to the post, and then we can kind of just dig into your whole experience.
For sure. Yeah, so I posted on Instagram a couple Sundays ago, and basically just stating out what had happened, taking the vaccine, and some of the issues, I would say, that came from that.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it was, people were really good about it. There's also some stuff from Greg Anderson posting. People really enjoyed my nipple. He showed everyone my nipple. So
I didn't catch the nipple aspect of this post.
Yeah,
what happened here?
So it's basically me holding my shirt up, showing my Holter monitor.
Yes, I do remember that. I was looking at that and not the nipple.
So a lot of messages.
Apologize for not taking in your message fully.
So I don't know if Greg posting really helped me out. A lot of people commented saying nice nipple, great nipple. So that was, not really bad, but
just remember the internet's full of assholes.
Yeah, but it was good. It was good. Got to have good nipples, I guess.
I guess. So when the negative commentary outside of the discussion of the anatomy of your body, which again, I wish the internet came with a intelligence test associated with it. We should all have the internet, but maybe people who score lower on that test should get slower internet, or maybe it should be only download. They need access to information, but until you pass a few tests, you don't get to upload. As far as negative commentary, what kind of?
Not a whole lot. For the most part, there was one doctor had reached out to me, basically just stating my story was fake, and everyone that's like me is pretty much fake. And whoever, she really didn't care if you're pretty much if you're unvaccinated, she could care less what happened to you.
Yeah.
Which is disappointing because obviously there's a good bit of people like me that is struggling. So
it also, I think, if your doctor directly goes against the Hippocratic Oath and probably the reasoning behind why you would want to get into medicine in the first place.
Yeah.
So before we dive into your experience and where you are today, let's go back in time. How old are you, by the way?
I am 24. Will be 25 next month.
You still have spots.
Yeah.
You're a youngin'. All right, where are you from?
I am from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Born and raised?
20 minutes south, Trenton, Georgia. Mm-hmm. So I'm a Georgia boy, but
You're a Georgia boy, but you live in Tennessee. Is
correct.
that? Do you tell a lot of people that? Is this authorized? Do we need to edit this out of the
No,
podcast?
that's cool. Everybody knows. Everybody knows back at home I'm a dog through and through, so that's good.
Is that a
Georgia Bulldog.
I was going to say that's a
Yeah.
football reference, isn't it?
Yeah.
I had a buddy. Yeah, he used to say, "Go Dogs," and I think another guy would be like, "No, go Roosters," or some other bullshit animal associated with that. All right. So born and raised.
Yep. Born and raised Trenton, Georgia, and then went to college in Athens, Georgia, and then came back to Chattanooga, and yeah, been there ever since.
What'd you study in college?
So didn't completely graduate, but was going for agribusiness,
Okay.
and yeah.
And did you have the desire to serve in the military prior to that?
Yeah, so I wanted to go the officer route.
Yeah.
But I actually had some guys, good friends, join before me, and they, they're like, "You don't want to go the officer route. You want to be part of the boys." So, yeah, I fell into that clique. So came back home, and started training, and here we are.
So I started my process of enlistment in the military in the late 90s. So I joined in 96, or actually hit boot camp in 96. So let me know if this was a similar experience or what you had to go through. Recruiter, right? They always tell you everything as well.
Oh, yeah.
Total and complete information. For me, then it was MEPS, the Military Enlistment Processing Station, I believe, which was the battery of the ASVAB test, which is the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. The fact that I just pulled that out of my ass, by the way, I'm going to give myself a gold star for that because that was about 25 years ago. There was the initial doctor screening, for which actually my first time at MEPS, I was permanently disqualified due to hypertension. Which I don't have, and that was an interesting and totally different story. I had to go back a second time after spending time with the specialist and a whole bunch of shit. Then it was off to boot camp, and then from there the pipeline began. So how far into that did you make it? Or was that a similar pipeline that was laid out to you?
So basically, like right before I graduated high school, I actually went to recruiter. So I was going to go straight enlisted.
Navy, correct?
Correct.
Good call.
Yeah.
Probably the best call.
For sure. My dad kind of pushed that too. He was an Army guy. Grandfather also was an Army guy. And yeah, they're just like, go do something else. Don't be an Army guy.
It's good to hear.
No offense to the Army guys, but
It's good to hear when the other services can recognize the superiority of a particular
For
branch
sure.
in the military and recommend it to their family.
oh yeah.
Army guys are now like, fuck you.
Yeah, basically just my dad just talking about all the times he just slept in mud in his tent. He's just like, go do something else.
Yeah, but
Food wasn't even that good.
I had some of that experience too in my
Right.
time as well.
For
So
sure.
it depends on what you're getting into. I actually, if my own kids had said they wanted to join the military, I probably would have pushed them more towards the Air Force, to be honest. For a litany of reasons, but I think they have a very diverse set of skills that could directly translate to their time out of the military as
For
well.
sure.
So, how is that? How many times did you meet with a recruiter?
Man, I met with him once. I took a practice ASVAB, scored pretty decent on it, and it's kind of a funny story. I kind of ghosted him. So he was like calling me, blowing me up, trying to show up to the house. And I was just like, this is really not good.
Almost.
Yeah.
Let's call it the verge of predatory behavior.
Yeah, for sure. Then he started like calling my dad. So that was really good. My dad's like, you probably should figure this out. Are you going to college or are you going in the military? So I was like, I guess I'm going to go try college first. So that's where I went.
So you went to college, decided in the college journey that maybe let's readdress the
Yeah, for
military
sure.
pipeline. Did you go back and talk to probably wasn't the same recruiter at this point, but
I don't think so. No, I don't think he's there. Just because I had some friends go here recently and before, and I don't think he's there anymore.
Yeah. And I actually want to talk to me about the level of physical activity leading up into this point in time. Did you play sports growing up? Like, what kind of stuff were you into? Because I think it will set a good baseline for conversation as to your health conditions and capacity right now.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up wrestling, football, baseball, all those sports. I actually, high school, played a lot of basketball, kind of dropped everything, and for some odd reason got really into golf. Was horrible. Have no idea why I got into that. Still would show up to like wrestling practice and have fun with those guys, but was never on the team. I just kind of burned out.
Yeah.
Plus, I was really big into hunting, so a lot of those team sports kind of got in the way of that. But for the most part, just weightlifting, that kind of stuff.
Active.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have any I mean, maybe you're not allowed to ask these questions. Not that answer if you want to or don't. Did you have any like medical conditions growing up? Did you have any like family history of stuff that you were dealing with, or up until the point in the recent past, everything was going?
No, everything's been pretty smooth. I've never even really had I don't think I've had a primary doctor until now.
Okay.
So it's usually, if I ever had anything to do, it was just go to your local whatever.
Doc in the box?
Yeah.
What kind of training were you doing leading up to that desire to enlist in the military?
So a lot of weightlifting, CrossFit, also became a triathlete in that process. Actually just did my first half Ironman back in May, and then just kept racing sprint triathlons until about late August.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What? So it sounds like you were actually, I would say, probably more active than somebody in their early 20s.
Oh, for sure.
For like your average cohort, you were
Yeah.
out there, you were pushing yourself hard. You had a desired end state and a goal that you knew was going to be physically and mentally taxing inside of the military. So you were training for that. Was your decision to get the vaccine based off of your desire to join the military because it was one of the requirements?
So I had talked to some guys. They were just out of the boot camp process. I didn't really know them. I had spoke to them. They were saying they were, and this is what they said. They were just saying some of the guys were having problems. They don't know technically if it was from the vaccine or what was going on, but a lot of them were not recovering to do the push-ups and the swimming, really more the swimming and the running for sure. A lot of chest pain kind of stuff. So I was like, their thing was, I wish I would have got it sooner to recover if that was the case.
So they could have dealt with any potential, if there were any side effects prior to going into the military.
I mean, because the odds are already against you. I mean, that's not something you want to just push onto yourself.
The odds are against you. What do you mean, in the military?
Yeah, I mean, just in that process, that pipeline in general.
Yeah, it's challenging.
Right, especially coming out, I assume you would know, coming out of boot camp, I guess being a little out of shape, that kind of stuff, and then...
Well, let's just say that boot camp, depending on how you go in, could actually probably net you in better shape. It takes all kinds, and you'll encounter all kinds at boot camp. There were people who legitimately were being calorically restricted by the drill instructors at Navy boot camp because they were absolutely flirting with the height, weight, like body standards. And there were others who absolutely deconditioned in boot camp because it's this huge melting pot of people from all over the country, and you got to break them, or maybe they wouldn't use that term. You have to reorient their priorities from a sense of me to a sense of we. You're now part of this big unit, and there's a lot of skills that you learn. There's classes, and what you're not doing a lot of, especially if you're going to go down a specialized pipeline, anywhere near like a special operations pipeline, you're not working out as hard as you would want to prepare for that. So there can be an essence of deconditioning. However, for some people, boot camp is the most difficult physical activity they've ever done.
Right.
So it depends. Okay, so you were looking at, and correct me, I'm not trying to speak for you at all. Correct me if I'm wrong in this. So you were looking at, you wanted to enlist. You had talked to some people about, and again, anecdotally, it sounds like they were trying to figure out maybe what the issue had been. Perhaps
Right.
they thought it could have been some issue with the vaccine. So I'm assuming that you made the decision to get it earlier rather than wait till closer to being actually going in the military.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to kind of be in the process this December, or I guess this past December, and be shipped out by December 2022. That was the route I was wanting to go.
Okay. And so what was the choice that you made, and how did it go from there?
Well, I guess depending on who you ask, it definitely did not go well for me. Yeah, I actually took a couple steps back.
Okay. When did those steps begin?
So I got my first vaccine September 10th and didn't really notice anything too much.
Which one did you get?
I got Pfizer.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is I actually am not incredibly educated about the 3 different versions. I know that 2 of them are 2-shot and 1 of them is 1, right?
Correct.
Is Pfizer a 2 or
2-shot,
okay.
yeah. I mean, was then. I don't know what it is now. There's no telling, but
I think they still count the initial as 2 and then the boosters. I hard to track a little bit the how often you're supposed to take the booster, how many you may. I think that conversation is still up in the air, but I believe the baseline vaccination still sits at 2.
okay. So got my first one September 10th, and
Of 2021.
correct.
Okay.
And actually, and I kind of want to put this in there as well. So that week starting out, I actually rode. So Labor Day was that Monday. I rode 80 miles. I was actually going for a century bike ride, which is 100 miles. And kind
That sounds terrible.
it was awful.
Yeah.
It was so hot
It just
And
just that number of miles, I
Uh,
would say hard pass.
for sure. And then as soon as you bonk, there's no coming back from it. I'm like
Yes.
40 miles out, and I'm just like eating peanuts, Coke, just trying to get whatever in my body.
Yeah.
It's awful. It was an awful, awful day. Actually, it was a horrible week. So I went Friday, and so my wife and I both went and went in there, got the shot, felt fine for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that weekend, like the typical like soreness in the arm or whatever. So yeah, then we went fly fishing, and we were riding cruiser bikes around the campground, and I mean we're just cruising, probably like 7-8 miles per hour, and I could kind of tell like I was kind of struggling, and
From like a cardio perspective?
yeah, I was like, something's up, this is not right, and I had mentioned something to my wife Paige, and she was like, you know, maybe we've been hitting the Mexican restaurant a little too hard, maybe out of shape just a little bit, you know. Because I just came off racing season, but I was like, I just don't know about that. I don't think I'm going to lose it in 2 weeks, which I hadn't rode in 2 weeks. And I was like, I don't think so. Especially just a cruiser bike, riding around different ponds, going and fishing. And yeah, just kind of kept going on the mindset of just maybe I'm just a little out of shape.
Okay. And how did it progress?
So yeah, I took the vaccine, the second vaccine, October 2nd, and again, well, actually, so looking back on it now, we kind of talked about it, but when I got it, you know, the initial like sit around 10, 15 minutes at the pharmacy, just wait on, see if anything goes wrong. That's kind of what
They advocate. I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
So they give you the shot and they tell you to wait there.
Yeah, just in case.
Okay.
I think they do that with the flu shot as well.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with that. I'm not saying that it's abnormal. I just didn't realize that they asked you to do that.
Yeah, and they're just like, if you just want to hang around. And I got about like 10, 15 minutes, and I was like, all right, cool. I'm bailing out of here.
Mm-hmm.
So was heading to Walmart, and, my nose just like started bleeding a little bit, and I was like, okay, no big deal. Hadn't had a nosebleed and not just a random nosebleed in a couple of years, which really is not that abnormal,
Yeah.
I guess. And yeah, so I went into Walmart, got a brisket. Was going to kind of just take the weekend. I didn't know how it was going to affect me. You know, some people have said like, oh, my arm hurts or my back hurts, just the typical.
And some people have said I felt absolutely nothing the entire time. Yeah.
So I was just going to take it easy. The dogs were actually playing that weekend, so I figured I'd smoke a brisket. And
sounds like a very Tennessee thing to do.
yeah.
Smoke a brisket, watch the dogs.
Watch the dogs.
You guys are deep. Fuck.
It's really, I won't say it's the only thing to do, but football season in the South, it's a big deal.
Have you ever considered not buying meat at Walmart?
Yeah, that was the first problem. But that was also, there was like this weird like shortage, I think, that week. Don't quote me on it. I think that was like the whole port thing. And it was literally the last brisket in the whole, like, in the area that we lived in.
Had you considered that somebody and everybody had left it there for a reason?
Now that you say that.
Yeah.
That could have been the problem.
Brisket and Walmart, to me, is a classic pairing.
This Walmart's pretty nice, though. I will give them that.
First off, that's a bold-faced lie. All right, if we're going to sit here and have this conversation, don't lie to my face.
It was
Walmart, did it have fucking, like, Italian tile floors? Are we talking, like, gold handles? What makes it a nice Walmart?
It was new.
It was
newer.
New. All right.
Newer, if that helps.
More people in there had most of their teeth as opposed to missing them? I mean, what are we talking
And this is actually a pretty sketchy Walmart, to be completely honest. Yeah. We won't say where the location is. But,
promise me you'll never buy meat at Walmart again.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely a superstition at this point now.
I mean, there's butcher shops, and there's a Walmart here. I'll go into Walmart occasionally for certain things. It's not, when I think like, God, I'm going to go get just this amazing prime cut of beef, my car doesn't start heading towards Walmart, Chase.
I understand that. I would say I would not go there either, but I had been watching how to smoke a brisket for probably like 2 weeks at this point.
Yeah.
And I had looked.
I mean, we're talking about food preparation at this point because the title of that video could lead you down a weird rabbit hole.
Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, I put so many hours into watching and learning how to smoke this brisket. Like, it was going to be the greatest brisket. Did it come out? The cooking preparation, the quality of the meat was definitely from Walmart.
Yeah.
So
you get what you pay for.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Even though this portion of what we're talking about has absolutely nothing to do with why you're here, I'm going to give you that life lesson that I have learned through mistakes. Take that one with you. Put it in your back pocket and pull it out when you need it. Next time somebody goes, hey, man, let's go get that brisket from Walmart to watch the dogs. You're like, no. Okay?
For sure.
Google.
I'm taking that on. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so you're in Walmart, though.
Yeah, so notice my nosebleed again.
Oh, so it stopped and started?
Yeah. It was initial, like, it just kind of like dripped a couple times, cleaned it up. So then I'm going through Walmart and I'm kind of just like snorting, like kind of embarrassed. Like, I'm at this point holding this massive brisket. My nose is bleeding and I'm like, okay, this is not cool at all. So I'm trying to like rush out of there. As I'm rushing out of there, I'm kind of getting like lightheaded. Just kind of thought maybe just a nosebleed or whatever.
Feeling off.
Yeah, for sure. And went back, and that's also like looking back now. Then it was just like, whatever. I'm just in a hurry to get home.
Yeah.
Not really even thinking about it. Get back out to the car. At this point, it's taken off and then stops. I get it to stop finally. I mean, it's like someone bust me in the nose for sure. Got home, kind of sat down for a little bit. I prepared, got the Traeger going, was just hanging out. Yeah, and then I put the brisket on. I thought, so as soon as I put it on, my nose just took off again, and I was like, I thought maybe like the heat from the Traeger just kind of like blowing up. Maybe that was it.
Yeah. You're talking about a pretty profuse bleed from your nose?
For sure, yeah. And nothing crazy. Like, nothing like, oh, this is super abnormal. I'm going to the hospital now.
It's not like a sprinkler head, but it's coming out.
But I mean, it's like, yeah, it's going pretty good. So, yeah, clean it up, do that, the whole process, getting it to stop. Never had it again. Didn't really have a problem. I think that was Saturday. Yeah, that was a Saturday. Sunday, didn't really have a problem either. Monday, I woke up, and I was a little sore, I mean, just like going back to like the mats in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and
Or just like having the flu, like a kind of like a body ache soreness.
Yeah. So, it was just kind of like sore all around. Muscles were tight, and kind of just calling boss like, this the normal what everybody else is getting. I'm just gonna take it easy for the day. Cool.
Yeah.
We'll see you, whenever. Just let us know. And just kind of took the rest of the week kind of normal.
Did you start feeling better after that day that you were sore?
It's hard to look back at now. I wouldn't say really normal. There's definitely some things then that would definitely like maybe you could question. So at work I was having so I normally I have like a respirator on sometimes at work.
What do you do for a living?
So I work for RMJ Tactical. They make knives, tomahawks.
Okay.
I actually do a little bit of the marketing for their sister company, Chattanooga Leatherworks.
Okay.
So was helping build some sheaths, and I don't know if I assume you've had a respirator on. I don't know if you have. Basically,
I've had I've had like rebreathers and gas masks and stuff on.
Right. So essentially, how you breathe, and if you took it off, you could kind of see condensation, I guess, like the water.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So when I took it off, it kind of it was almost, I wouldn't say like a cup of water, but it was enough when I kind of was flipping it off my head. It hit my pants, and I was like, where did this water come from? And that was and I stood up and was a little dizzy. And so I kind of just leaned over the table and was kind of just joking to my boss. I'm like, man, I can't breathe. And he was like, you good? You okay? Kind of worried about me. He's like, been kind of off today. And I'm like, no, I feel fine. Just a tough day. Whatever.
Were you wearing that respirator longer than you normally would have?
No.
Okay.
No, I've worn it for a hot minute for sure.
Yeah.
And it's not that big of a deal.
So it's an abnormal amount of condensation for the time that you were wearing
For
it.
sure.
Okay.
And it really honestly wasn't that long a time. But I noticed, because I have headphones in, the buffer wheel, it's loud, it's going, and didn't really think of it. I could kind of tell in my breathing, it sounded off, but, never really put two and two together until I stood up and I was like, oh, well, this isn't really normal.
In your head at this point, what were you associating you feeling off to? Were you concerned about maybe it was tied to that second shot or the series that you had gone through? Did you just think that you were sick?
To be honest, it was kind of in the back of my head, but I was denying it. That was a route I did not want to go down. Just kind of, I didn't know anybody that had an issue. Mm-hmm. So I was like, that can't be it. I know so many people that has had it, and
with no issues whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, as far as I know, no issues. And is actually, so somebody, we had talked to a family friend. They're like, maybe you got bit by a tick or something. And I'm like, I had a tick on me first day of bow season, and I was like, cool, that's it. I didn't care what it was. I just wanted the problem to be fixed, and it fixed as soon as possible. I just didn't want any time to be taken away for sure. So that's and that'll tie in. So that was the second week of October, going up to third week of October. At this point, going to CrossFit, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm still riding. I'm still running. But I go to track night on Wednesdays, and that was I had noticed my times were just getting slower and slower, and I'm hurting at this point. And most workouts that we do, they end with a 400 meter run, and that is that's my bread and butter for me. Mm-hmm. That's when I see that on the workout, it's an easy day. I say easy. I like running 400s. I like testing myself. So with that being said, I had usually one of the guys there that's, you know, really good at running. They'll kind of, hey, do you want to push it right here? And I was like, dude, let's push it.
Yeah, just push off each other.
Yeah. So I was trying to break my PR. I was trying to go for like 110, even though like I knew
That's a good clip.
Yeah, I didn't feel good, but I was like, who cares? I mean, what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
You know. So when I took off, I almost immediately felt it, and it was like something I'd never felt before. Like I've never had chest pain. Just the way that my ribs, just everything tightened up, and to be completely honest, like if I thought I was going to shit myself, like it was that bad. And you know, a lot of runners, they do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty common.
I don't know if you've actually lived a complete life until you've shit yourself at least once.
Fair. I guess I haven't lived completely. I have not.
You have time. You have a lot of runway in front of you.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of ways you can get there too. And
I'm told that a lot, that I don't push it hard enough if I'm not trying to use use the bathroom in my pants.
Don't get to the end of your life without shitting yourself at least once.
I
saw that on a fortune cookie once. Not a big deal.
But yeah, just I kept, you know, at that point that was probably like 200 meters, and I'm way back. This is not good. He's yelling at me like, "Come on, dude! I know you have more in the tank than that." And at this point, I'm finishing in about 2 minutes. So, people I guess that don't run, that is an 8-minute mile. That's a warm up mile for me.
I was going to say it's a far stretch from a 110 lap, which would be under a 5-minute mile, like a 4. It would be it'd be exactly a 440 mile.
And
so almost, I mean, closer to double the time you were shooting for.
Oh, for sure. And so he's yelling at me, "Come on, dude! Like pick it up, let's go. I know you got more than that." And at this point, 100 yards, stretch or 100-meter stretch at this point, and I literally feel like I'm gonna die. I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna make it there. I'm getting the 1,000-yard stare. I hit the finish line, and I kind of like, I won't say belly flop, but kind of like soccer slid on my stomach in the field, kind of like ran out of the finish line into the football field and kind of like slid, and then just kind of was in my knees, and I was just like, just grasping for air. And Paige was like, "Hey, you want me to get you water? Like, what'd you get right there?" And I was like, "Not good. Like, this is not good." And so get to the car, and she's like, that kind of made me nervous, the way that you kind of looked at me. Are you sure you're okay? Like, are you okay? Like, mentally, physically, like, is everything at work okay? Is life okay? And I'm like, everything is fine. Like, I don't know what is going on. And I just thought about this. So I kind of skipped a little bit. Monday, the Monday after, or the 3 days after I got the shot, I came home from work, and I forgot that I didn't say this, but I came home from work. Paige was off work. We were both sitting in the bed. I kind of just like laid back down, and I was like, "Oh, I really don't want to go run." Because Mondays I normally take off, like that's an off day, but I guess coming off race season, I was just like so just amped up, just want to do something, anything different than what I was doing, because every week was like the same workout. Mm-hmm. It was so consistent for Ironman training, triathlon training, and I was like, I'm gonna go run. So I like stand up, and I basically just fall right back down to the bed. She's like, and I have like 1,000-yard stare. I'm kind of like goat leg at this point. Like I'm just kind of like staring, like looking for her. And I can't really say if I was hurting or not, because I didn't even feel like I was even here. And she's like, what are you doing? What are you jumping on the bed for? Like what are you doing? And then she looked at me. She's like, "Chase, your lips are purple. You're turning pale. What's wrong?" And I can just hear her just over and over and over saying that. And finally, it came to me, and I was just like, what? What are you talking about?
Sounds like you passed out.
Yeah, so I say almost fainted. I don't know. I don't think lights completely went out. But I've never in my entire life, I've never been knocked out. So I don't know.
Well, I'm not an expert in it, but I'd say if you were knocked out, you probably wouldn't have any recollection of her talking to you, or the audio.
Yeah, and it was
visual and audio
for sure. And it was so wild because I could see, but it was like pencil holes, and I could just see her, and it was just like my lights just going far away, and then back, and then I'm just like, what are you talking about? So then, me being stubborn, all right, cool. I don't know exactly what happened. She brings in some water, and she's like, you're not going running. And I'm like, I'm for sure going running. Like, I'm not.
That's exactly what a young man would say.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's disregard what just happened, and I'm going to go stretch it out.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that to anybody, but yeah, it's just, I really enjoy, working out.
Yeah.
Pushing the limits. So, and in my eyes, I've talked to her quite a bit about it, but obviously it's essential for off days, things like good sleep, that kind of stuff.
Rest and recovery.
But sometimes I have a problem with that. So
you're young. You'll get over that.
And I think a lot of people, honestly, in this sport, being a triathlete, I think they have that problem as well. It's kind of just, it's a drive. I mean, the people that are triathletes, they're very competitive. It's really fun. It doesn't seem like a chore at all. So, but I guess back to where I was.
Yeah, fast forward. So now you guys are in the car. You're leaving the football field. You had just done your belly slide.
Yeah. So, went and ate dinner, and I was like, I really don't know what that was. Like, I didn't feel like me at all. And she's like, well, talk to me about it. Explain it. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I guess, like, looking back at it now, I couldn't really explain because, like, when you do, like, an Ironman or something, you cramp up, right? So I just kind of took it as I cramped up, but there was, like, a mental play to it. And so went home. Everything was kind of normal. I went to jiu-jitsu the next morning, and it was a pretty easy roll. That morning, actually, my chest was really sore. And I got there, and I was kind of like, maybe I don't want to take it too hard, but just being me, I'm like, who cares? Like, sore chest. I'm sure that's completely normal.
It'll work itself out.
Yeah. Who cares?
Yeah.
As long as someone doesn't put, knee to belly or knee to sternum, I'm good. So one of the guys was actually new, and I was kind of like burned out. I wasn't gonna roll with him, but he had asked, and I was like, for sure. He was a wrestler. I don't think I'm a Division I wrestler, but I feel like that is something in jiu-jitsu I'm decently strong at. That I would say that is my stronger suit. Would be takedowns. Now, beyond takedowns, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that's just it. But I had taken him down, and somehow, I don't know like how it spun out, but basically I had his back, and I went to go to put him in a rear naked choke, and I kind of just flung over and grasped for air. I just kind of like pushed myself off of him, and if I remember correctly, he was kind of like he kind of like twisted around and hopped on me, and I was just kind of like and he was like, "I'm sorry, dude. Did I hit you in the grill?" And like, "You okay?" And I'm like I can't say anything, and I'm just kind of like, and I roll over, and I'm like kind of tucked in, and I'm like, dang, I don't know what is going on. And I kind of like grasped for air. And he was like, are you sure you're okay? And I was like, with that kind of like that grunt voice, just like, I'm about to puke. And never did. I kind of just laughed it off. I was like, whatever. I was like, I don't know what just happened there, dude. I'm sorry. We can get back after this next week.
At what point did you start thinking perhaps a medical professional should be consulted?
It took me way too long. Way too long. So,
because what you're describing from a non-trained eye, there's 3 or 4 things that you have described that would perhaps
for sure, I mean,
elicit a telephone call at a minimum.
For sure.
Or like a text to somebody who was like maybe an EMT.
Right.
Like, hey man.
I'm just so, I don't like hospitals.
I get that. So what actually got you to go to one?
So on that Wednesday that I was struggling, in the warm up, I had talked to my track coach, and I was like, telling him I was having some issues, a little bit different to this stuff. And he was like, maybe you should go get that checked out. That's probably pretty normal to go get checked out. And I was like, kind of laughed at him, and I was like, dude, I don't know. We'll just pan out. We'll see how it goes. And he's like, all right, man, just, I'm here for you. If this keeps going on, I think you really should go see something. And it had nothing to do with my chest. I kind of thought it was like a testosterone type thing. And so, that day played out. That next week, I had, I took off from jiu-jitsu. At this point, my chest is so sore.
Like we're talking sort of the touch?
Yeah, it was sort of touch. Yeah, my ribs. I kept like cramping up in my ribs. And I was like, maybe I'll just give it a week off. Whatever. If that's what I need to do, then that is what it is. So Tuesday, I think I hopped on my bike actually and just rode a trainer ride, and was like 25 minutes off from like my normal pace, and it's almost like no elevation at all. And I was like, this is not good. I don't know what is going on at this point. Am I just old like that's what I'm thinking at this point. Like, did I just peak and this is it? Like I don't even know how to explain it. And especially from a mental aspect, it was so disappointing, because you put in all this time, and then where you should be peaking, you are way below the minimum standard. And so that Wednesday, I texted my boss the night before. I was like, hey, I'm going to go get checked out. And it was just a little doc in the box.
Yeah.
And I get there, and I fill out a bunch of paperwork, and I go in. I'm like, hey, or they tell me, they're like, your blood pressure is kind of high. And I was like, okay, I have white coat syndrome for the most part. Like,
what is that?
Just your blood pressure goes up as soon as you're in a doctor's office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
like a stress response to being in the room.
Yeah.
I have never heard that term, but now as soon as I thought about that, it makes sense. White coat syndrome.
Yeah.
All right.
So at this point, I'm pretty frustrated. I'm like, this is going on. I don't know if it's coincidental to me taking the vaccine. If you want to call it passing out, I almost fainted, whatever. This is what happened. I think it could be a testosterone problem. I have no idea. I've never had any kind of issue like this in my entire life. And they're like, it's probably nothing. We'll just, do an chest x-ray on you, and we'll go from there. And I was like, perfect. So I'm almost positive they checked me for COVID that day. Because I told them, I was like, I don't think it's COVID related. And they're like, well, we're just going to check you. What is it going to hurt? And I go to the x-ray, and it's like literally walk across the aisle or hallway. And get the x-ray. And on the way back, the lady's like, do you have asthma? And I'm like, unless it started today, this morning, I have no idea. As far as I know, I've never had any issues. And she's like, okay. Well, then I get back. I'm sitting there. The nurse comes in. She like peeks in. She's like, hey, have you ever had asthma? No.
This is a different person asking.
Correct.
Yeah.
So then I guess you essentially, I don't know if the doctor there.
Doctor or probably nurse practitioner.
Right.
And they have a variety of people working there.
So she comes in. Hey, are you sure you've never had asthma? No. Do you smoke? No. I have no idea. I've literally, I just got a vaccine back in early October. Mm-hmm. At this point, this is the last week of October. I'm like, I've been struggling all month. I have no idea what in the world's going on. So she's like, okay. Well, they dismissed me. They're like, maybe she's like, maybe you should kind of look into what you're eating. Maybe your blood pressure is the problem. And I was just like, I mean, maybe, but for the most part, like I eat pretty clean. I mean, you have to, if you're doing this kind of exercising, like you're going to feel like complete shit the whole entire time.
Yeah. You have to fuel for the performance.
Right. So, and I was like, okay, maybe I am. And I just, went with it. And my family threw a Halloween party on that Saturday. And I went, of course, I waited to the last minute, went and got a costume.
What'd you go as?
I went as an Office character. It was
from the show The Office?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was literally a shirt and a mustache.
It could be a lot of things.
It was super simple. Yeah. Okay. And it was like $15. It was on sale. So I was like, whatever. And I get there and I'm like worn out. This is probably 1 o'clock in the evening when I'm getting the costume. So, it's not like I just woke up at 5 a.m. and just went and got a costume. So I'm like really, really fatigued at this point. And I'm like, whatever. It's just been a tough week, whatever. Work's okay. Life's okay. My physical, exercising is not okay, but if that's the worst case, whatever. So I go to the party and Paige is actually at work. I actually text her and I'm like, I'm off again. I don't have no idea what is going on. And I get there and, everyone's having a really good time. I'm trying not to drag. I'm trying not to like show that like I'm just not feeling good. And they spot me out quick because I'm the only one inside on the couch watching football and everyone's outside by the fireplace. They come in, they're like, are you okay? Like, are you sick? Like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like,
had you told your family about any of the
no,
issues that you were dealing with?
I don't think so. And I was like, it's not, it's nothing. It's not a big deal. And as the further that day went on, it was just like, every time I stood up, everything, I just kept getting drained. And, they're like, joking around with me, like, snag a beer, that'll help the mood. And I'm just like, honestly, I drank so much water that day, like just filling up Nalgene's just kept putting in my body. I'm like, I have no idea what is going on. So I was kind of nervous and I was like whatever, I'll drink a beer, like try to make the mood better. And, I'm talking to my aunt and she's like, maybe you're just anxious. And I'm like, about what though? She's like, well, are you stressed? And I'm like, no. Like, I literally, got off early this week to go deer hunting. My boss I was like, hey, I'm going deer hunting. And he's like, cool. If you kill something, let me know. I'll come help you drag it. And like that's what kind of relationship I have at work. So, it was like super, super chill. And I'm like, no, I'm not struggling. Like, financially, things are good. Paige and I are good. Life in general is good. I just feel weird. I don't know. And she's like, well, maybe you just have, anxiety. And I was like, I think everybody to an extent has anxiety about things. And I was like, it doesn't feel like that. It's not like before a race where you're a little anxious or you have a huge to-do list and you don't think you're going to get it done. It's not like that. Like it was very overwhelming. And they're like, I really think so. I don't think you should, probably don't look too far into it. You're probably okay. I just don't see how all of us got the vaccine and it would affect you. You are literally the fittest in the family. You have nothing wrong with you. I don't see that happening. And I was like, okay, cool. So then the next day, I text Paige.
Your wife just raised her finger.
Wait, I was gonna add something. Just that Shannon had texted me that night and was like, "I really think Chase, like something's up. You should probably guys might." So I was at work for 12 hours and she texted me and was like, "You should maybe go to the hospital."
She knows the story better than I do.
Well,
So
this was on Halloween. That was our first hospital
right.
visit.
So the next day was Halloween, and
You get to fill so for people watching or listening, Paige is in the room with us. She's sitting just off camera. So she
is sitting here supervising, make sure my story is correct.
So she filled you in. Explain what she just filled you in on.
So my aunt had texted her that night.
Pre or post this conversation you had with her?
Post.
Okay.
And was like, hey, I don't think Chase is good. I think you should really check on him. And yeah, and she was like, maybe he really does need to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
So that next day, and I don't remember the day completely. I just remember being very just overwhelmed, I guess, just emotions everywhere. And Paige is, she's like, do you want to go to the hospital? I'm like, honestly, no, because the Braves are playing tonight, and I really want to watch them. And
they have TVs at the hospital, for clarity.
They did not have a TV in this room.
Do you have a cellular telephone?
I did, and I watched it, but it was not as good as sitting on my couch.
Better than not watching it at all.
Correct. But, however, so I get there, and I tell them, I'm like, hey.
You get to the hospital now.
Correct.
So you've elevated past.
Well, I go to the emergency room.
Okay, so you're past the doc in the box.
Correct. And I get there, and they're like, they're asking me my symptoms, chest pain, shortness of breath. And I was like, we kind of mentioned like, maybe, maybe it has to do with the vaccine. Maybe, and so we get there and, we tell them all that. They finally roll me back pretty quick. I mean, I guess because a 24-year-old, and it wasn't really that busy, but a 24-year-old with chest pain, they kind of...
Probably pretty serious.
Yeah. So I go back, I'm talking to the nurse, just watching the baseball game. She's like, she noticed my Ironman shirt. She's like, oh, you do Ironmans? And I was like, yeah. And we were like talking about that. I think like her boyfriend or husband did the same race or whatever. And I was like, super, that's cool. And we were just going back and forth talking about it. And she's like, okay, the doctor will be here in a minute. She comes in. And actually, before that nurse left, I was like, hey, just so you know, like, I might have got bit by a tick. I was like, I don't really recall. Like, I remember it being on me, but I don't remember pulling off. That's early September.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, okay, I'll let her know. It's probably not a big deal. Like, if you don't have any bumps or anything at this point, like, probably not a big deal. So she comes in and she really stressed, like, hey, your D-dimer is up. We are going to send you to...
Your what was up?
My D-dimer. So, again, like, do not have a medical degree.
Yeah.
Basically, like, if you're bruised or basically like blood clots, if your D-dimer's essentially like really high.
Okay.
And it was only a little bit elevated, but she was like, I don't know. She was kind of like, I don't know. I'm not seeing anything on you. Let's go get this checked out. Especially like if it's, cause like I showed her like where I thought I might've got bit or like where I pulled the tick like off my ankle or whatever in that general area. And she's like, well, let me look at it. She's like, there's no bump. There's nothing. Like, it's almost 2 months. You'd be showing something. It's like super unlikely. She's like, we're going to go give you a CAT scan. We're going to check you out. And so, and actually like, I was not really arguing with her, but I'm like, you know, cause like, I did not want to go down the vaccine route at all. That's not something I even want to mess with. Didn't want to talk about it. Didn't even want to even bring that up in reality. And I'm like, so if that CAT scan comes back normal, you're going to check me for this, you know, for this tick bite, right? Or possible tick bite. She was like, yes, if you're so inclined, like, that's what I'll do. Like, she's like, I don't think that's it. Like something, she just kind of felt like something was up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go to the CAT scan, you know, it came back normal, came back. She's like, I really think we should check you out for pericarditis. And I'm like, that's that tick thing that I asked for, right? And she's like, I'm not worried about this tick thing. She's like, you're hurting in your chest. And I don't think this is normal. And at this point, she's kind of getting a little fiery with me. And I'm like, okay, like, whatever. If, you know, you know more than I do. I'm just trying to help out, though I'm being, at this point, not helping out at all. And she basically like went through all the options they had, or they said they could do at the hospital or at the ER. They're like, you know, we're going to send you to a cardiologist. They can figure it out. And I was like, cool. This was a wasted trip, but I went. Everybody told me to go. I went. And, you know, went back home. And I just, you know, kept hurting. I was like, I'm going to go back to work. And then I started hurting even worse.
Same symptoms, just magnified?
Yeah.
Can you clarify something? I'm sorry. That the CT scan is looking for a blood clot in his lungs.
Yeah,
Seems
so
very symptomatic.
Right. So the blood clot was looking, they were looking for blood clot in my lungs.
Due to that, what'd you call it? The
D-dimer.
D-dimer.
Yeah.
So that's what they were looking for.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and, you know, I text my boss. Well, that was Sunday. I was like, you know, I'm gonna take Monday off, and we're gonna regroup. We're gonna try this again on Tuesday. Cool. You know, let me know if I can do anything for you. You know, hope it's nothing. So, ended up going that whole week not working, and end up back at the ER on that Sunday. I was actually going to go. I was going to go for a walk, not a run.
Yeah.
A walk.
Like a brisk one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because my wife was not home, and I was like, I'm tired of sitting in this house.
In moments of lack of supervision, you were going to go out and make an excellent decision.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And yeah, sorry, very hard-headed. But yeah, so I actually went to go put on my running shoes, and as soon as I tied them and stood up, my world just went spinning. And I was like, holy shit, this is tough. And I kind of just put my hand back on the washer, and I was like, you know, what is going on? And I looked down, and I actually like hit my heart rate, and I was like, and I saw it was like 126 or 136, and I was like, oh my God, this is not good. This is not good at all. So I walk back over to the couch, I sit down, I kind of just put my head in between my knees, and I was just like, this is not good. I feel awful. Paige is at work. You know, the first thing I could do, I was just like, I called my aunt and I'm like, hey, my heart rate is this. And she's like, that doesn't sound, you know, that well, but I don't really know heart rates. And I'm like, well, I'm telling you, this is not good. Like, this is basically not running hard, but you're being active, not walking around the house. I'm like, this is not good at all. So she takes me, we go back to the ER, different ER at this point.
So this is your third trip to the ER? No, second. Sorry.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Second. And the doctor there were super cool, explained everything again. I'm like, you know, sorry I'm being a burden. Like, I'm here. This is it. I was like, I know you got other things to work on, not just me. But this is it. And he was, you know, we started talking about Ironmans. He also did jiu-jitsu. So we were talking about that. And he's like, so show me where, because I guess like the notes from like the past, they're like, let me see the notes from the past ER experience. And I was like, okay. And he like looked at it. And he's like, I'm not really seeing anything. Chances are like something would have popped up if that was the case. And I told him, so in between that, we went to another doc in a box, and it was a friend. You know, I talked to her. She COVID test, you know, for the third time or whatever it was, did, you know, blood work, thyroid check, you know, did the whole thing. We did what she called it, a tick panel. So it's basically like any kind of disease.
Just to rule it out.
Right. So, and I also did an antibody test, and it took a hot minute to get all that back. And I told that doctor, I was like, hey, like I already got, you know, the tick panel. And he's like, okay. He's like, I'm going to go to my desk and I'm going to study up on this for a second. Like, something's not right. And I was like, you know, cool. Like, take your time. I'm just here chilling. So he went back, and he went back for probably like 2.5 hours. And he's just like, man, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you some antibiotics. We're going to try to eliminate some stuff. Because he's like, you know, you can't just keep coming to the ER, you know, every week. Like, we got to figure something out. And I'm like, cool. That sounds really good with me. And he sent me to, or he wrote like recommendation, like I was supposed to go see this like disease specialist or whatever. And he's like, you know, take this. We're going to try to knock this out. You know, you should, if this is the case, you're going to know pretty soon whether or not that was it.
So he's treating you potentially for the tick.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, he's like, because I mean, essentially, like, nobody wants to go down that road, the vaccine road, you know, and.
Did you voice it to this doctor as well that this?
Yeah,
know,
I mean, it's in the notes, like, hey, like, this doctor said something about pericarditis, like, and it's kind of embarrassing, but I was telling Paige, I'm like, this is what they're saying, like, I'm kind of getting, you know, stumped again, and she's like, I'm calling over there. She calls, she's like, hey, you know, can we get an MRI or whatever it is, or maybe it's
she's waving at you.
No, I only did that because I am a nurse working in a hospital, and I knew they had capability to do more tests.
Right.
So it was an echocardiogram, which is an ultrasound of your
I
heart.
think she might need a mic.
No, I'm sorry.
Is your wife a nurse?
Maybe.
And you're over here trying to explain medical stuff.
For
and she's
sure.
correcting
That's
you.
why I said it's going to be a hard time. Keep looking over there, making sure.
It's all right. So apparently
And
she was
also
asking,
works on a cardiac force. So
So
makes it even
what she
harder.
was telling you is that you needed to ask for a specific test.
Right.
Yeah.
And I asked, and they're like, I don't think that's super necessary. I'm not saying, they're like, maybe, but we don't really think that's necessary. Let's see what this medicine does. So I was like, cool. All right. We'll try it. I mean, what do we have to lose? So I get the antibiotic, and man, it wrecked my world.
The antibiotic did.
Dude, I don't know if I've never been on a trip, but I was seeing colors in reptile skin. And
what did they give you?
It was doxycycline.
Okay.
And most, I know people that's on that, and it's totally fine, but for whatever reason, my body did not want any part of it.
Okay.
And, I'm texting Paige, and it was kind of an okay day. I was like, maybe it's working. I don't know. I don't know how to tell. I'm still sore. And probably around 5 o'clock, I was texting her, and I'm like, I have a migraine from hell. And
have you ever had migraines before?
I've never had a migraine. The essential oh, I have a migraine. I had no idea what a migraine was.
Yeah.
It got to the point where I just, she's talking to me, and if I barely opened my eyes or was trying to talk, I literally felt like I was so nauseous, I thought I was gonna die. I was just
And this was after you started taking the doxy?
Yeah. So they had all the lights turned off in the house. Her and her mom, they're both they're on the computer. They're just what can this be? Maybe it is the medicine. We don't know. So then they persuade me to go back to the ER that night.
So this would be trip 3.
Yeah. And it went awful. We stayed at this point, they didn't even ask really, you wrote down on the paper or whatever. They didn't ask what was going on. We probably stayed in there. I don't want to guess the hour, but it was a long time.
In the waiting room
Hours.
or in the actual?
Yeah, in the waiting room.
Okay,
Hours.
waiting to be seen.
Yeah. And I have a blanket over my head. At this, they also taught me into getting in a wheelchair. Actually, so I had to have a friend come over and pretty much guide me to the car. They're like, we're calling the ambulance. And I'm like, no way, you're not getting me in an ambulance.
What would it take for you to actually get into an ambulance?
I don't know. But that's not it.
Okay.
That's not it. And not trying to be a tough guy. I was just I'm not, this is, someone else out there really needs that ambulance. I don't need this ambulance. And
sometimes those ambulances, they're there for you, Chase.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Try to be respectful. Try to let others get it,
Yeah, just die quietly at home in pain
For
as
sure.
opposed to asking for help. Okay.
For sure. Very stubborn.
Yeah.
Very.
Well, now that you recognize that in yourself, perhaps there's something you could do about it.
I've learned a lot in this journey. Learned a little too much, honestly.
All right, so you're back at the hospital due
Yep.
to the help of a friend with a blanket over your head. I'm assuming to keep the lights down.
Correct. And we probably waited hours, maybe 4+ hours. And we get back there, and I'm honestly, I'm just trying to sleep, because I'm just maybe if I sleep, it'll go away. I don't know. And they come in, they ask typical, are you drinking enough water? Let's check your blood pressure, blood, everything, came back fine. Again, the ER was the ER doctor was again, we're stumped, no idea. And, Paige is advocating for me, just asking 1,000 questions because I have no idea what's going on. And then, they persuaded me again to get in the wheelchair, and we're probably we were in that room for less than an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were there for a long time.
Different doctor every time, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Yeah, just out there shifts.
And, well, the reason why we went back to the CR was because the doctor before was like, hey, I'm going to make sure to put this in the notes. Like, if this doesn't work, we're going to go on. We're going to keep this train going.
Did the doctor that you saw this last time see those notes, or were they in the notes?
I don't know.
Okay.
I would assume so, but yeah, I don't know.
So you hop in the wheelchair.
Yeah, hop in the wheelchair.
To head home.
Head home. At this point, it's probably 5 or 6 in the morning.
And we're into November of 21 at this point, right?
Correct.
Shortly after Halloween. Okay.
Yeah. This is literally, let's see. Yeah, we're in the second or third week of November.
Okay.
And so get back home. I'm feeling super guilty. Paige just did a 12-hour shift. We just, wasted so much time in the ER. And, I was just like, you're not getting me to go back to the ER. I was like, this will be the place I die, because I'm not going back. We can't just keep doing this, unless they can figure something out. And on the first doctor visit, they actually referred me to a cardiologist. And so I got worked in there. And at this point, this is November 11th. It's a Friday. 12th. So the 12th, we go back. We go see the cardiologist. He's really listening to me, and I'm like, no, man, I've been to the ER this many times. I've been healthy all year. I've had the best race season of my life. And I was trying not to boast, but I was trying to really show I'm not.
Drastic difference between where you were and where you are.
Right, and also I was trying to explain to him that I'm not just bis and tries kind of active. I'm letting him know hey, I just won my division, twice, or my age group twice in sprint triathlons.
Yeah.
Locally. Got invited to nationals in Milwaukee next year. I'm a fit dude. Things are really not going well. And he probably wrote, honestly, he could have wrote a book. He was just really listening to me, writing things down. And, I was feeling, because I was being really listened to, I guess, I was feeling better. And not in the sense of my chest still hurting. They did the EKG, and he was trying to explain because I have been healthy and I've never really had an EKG in a hospital, they don't know what to go off of.
Yeah, you don't have a baseline.
So everything looks normal. And so they put a Holter monitor on me. I had that on for 30 days.
I'm assuming that measures your heart rate?
It does.
Okay.
So it's this little bitty chip. It kind of looks like floss, but it clips in. And
to your skin?
Well, it's it's a sticker.
Okay.
And it has these electric probes. They're not in you, but somehow it'd be the same way a watch or the heart monitor I'm wearing now.
Gotcha.
But it sat right here, and they're you're gonna wear this for 30 days. We're gonna see what the problem is. If anything crazy comes up, it'll tell us immediately. You won't have to wait for the information to get back, and we can go from there.
So what'd that sucker show?
A little bit. So it showed a heart rate of 206. And at this point,
I'm assuming you were not exercising at that point.
Not at all.
Okay.
And I've went back to, because people, it's so wild how many people don't know anything about their heart rate, and they're is that really bad? And it's well, to put in perspective for you, my run for half Ironman, the highest I ever got up to was 202.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that puts it in perspective, like how hard.
That would be probably an extreme level of exertion for you.
Correct.
And so you hit above that. What were you doing when it hit that 206?
So that's something we still don't know. Because like for the most part, I was still just on the couch. I'm so fatigued. So the day after I got the Holter monitor, I went to my sister's wedding, and like walking from the car, probably like 50 yards to like the reception, I hit like 189 right out of the gate. My watch, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I don't feel good. I'm going to not put a spotlight on me. I'm going to keep, I think I had the same beer the whole entire night in my hand. Like, I just was not in the mood. People were like, come dance. And I'm like, maybe in a little bit. We'll try it out here in a little bit, and, people were hugging me and stuff, and I'm trying to like kind of hide it. And yeah, so keep going. I have no idea. I mean, there's nothing that comes back to me that would hit 206. I mean, again, no CrossFit, no running, nothing.
Is there a chance?
I hadn't even worked at this point.
Is there a chance that was an erroneous measurement?
I
asked that because I assume you would have felt it in your heart racing as well.
Well, so that's kind of the thing that I go back to. Anything really over like 160, you can feel. I mean, there was times where like I was hurting and felt like it was going to pump out of my chest. But like, if you ask me, could you feel the difference between like a 198 or whatever to a 206?
I'm not asking that. I mean, like I was curious if you felt, I mean, that to me is damn near, like if you look at the math, what is it, like 220 minus your age?
Right.
That for me at this point in my life, in my 40s, they'd be like, well, you're dead. But I would also feel it, you know what I mean? Like
right.
I would feel that happening in my body
right.
as I approach that.
And I think like the reason I can't pinpoint, it happened on Thanksgiving Day.
Okay.
But I cannot pinpoint
when during the day.
Yeah, because like there was just I had so much pain through like my rib cage. I mean, it essentially felt like somebody just kicked me straight onto the chest, and that I try, like it bugs me to death. I'm like, where was that? Because like that could easily put me in cardiac arrest.
Well, other than the 206, did it catch any other instances of you having a really really elevated heart rate?
That I don't really know, because like we didn't. So with that, and I'll say this. So after the month was up, so I had a checkup, at a month, but it was like a couple days before I had to send off my Holter monitor, and I'm trying to think. It's so much just compact in. We were in there for probably 15 minutes at max. Paige's like, I'm definitely going this one with you. Like something, they have to see something.
Mm-hmm.
And we walk in, and she's kind of, like, hey, how's everything? Blah blah. Oh, you're still having the same symptoms. Well, that I don't really know what's going on. She's like, we didn't see anything, and it actually sent it to, so the hospital we go to, it actually sends stuff to like an app, and it actually, like, Paige had noticed that the company of the Holter monitor had actually called them saying, it did hit 206, and Paige was like, well, actually, we did have something because it showed that or whatever, and they're like, well, let me see, and they're like, oh, well, I do see that, but everything looks okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of like dropped my head. I was just like, and nothing against her, you know, it's just kind of like, what world are we on that 206 is okay and you're not exercising? I don't know anybody that can hit that. And I mean, it's
a tough place to be too. I had a workplace injury back in 2005, and there's a lot of neuropathic pain associated with that. So I'm trying to describe to doctors the pain that I'm feeling and the lack of result that I was getting from the variety of treatments and approaches that they were taking. And it got me to a place where I got very, very frustrated because I didn't think that the people that I was talking to were listening. So I think I can understand the headspace that you're arriving at. You almost arrived at this place where it's like futile, like, why are you even asking me what's going on? Because I'm telling you and you're not doing anything about it.
Right. And nothing to her. I think she honestly was trying to do everything that she could. I think the process of these kind of things are so slow.
Well, did you find a doctor in this journey that you thought connected with you and was really willing to dive in on what was going on?
Yeah. So after that, that whole thing, you know, I'm kind of really pissed. You know, I wasn't being a jerk or anything, but
it's frustrating. I get it.
She's like, you know, and I swear, like we were in there for like 5 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating when I say 5 minutes. Like it was kind of like, hey, how's the day? Okay, everything looked fine, cool. And you know, she's like, I think we're done here, and I was like, yeah, we're done here. And she's like, okay. And so we walk out, and Paige is like doing everything she can not to see me, because like at this point I'm in so much pain, and we were leaving, and I'm just so pissed. And I remember just like asking her, like, do you like shoot straight with me? Like no more bullshit. Like, do you think I have cancer? Like, is this something I need to prepare for? And she's like, and we're going through Starbucks line, and she's like, you know, I don't think so. I think they would pick it up, but I don't know. And I just remember like looking out the window, and it's kind of tough talking about. I just remember asking her, like, you know, am I a dead man? Am I just a dead man walking at this point? And
tough questions to ask.
But I mean, it was just to the point where like nothing was being answered. Like, is this? And I was just, I kind of felt like nobody was shooting it straight with me.
Well, were they providing you any other explanation as to why you were feeling the way that you were?
No, they kind of just brought back the pericarditis, myocarditis, like maybe that's a route. And I remember like my cardiologist was like, and this is kind of like what he said was like, if these tests come back normal, which I don't think they will, like it's going to show something, I think he didn't really say like we're in trouble, but he kind of like pinpointed like, we're going to have to really, really look into this. Like this is not, something's up. So that's why I was asking those questions, because like I felt like I was dying, but nobody wanted to tell me. Yeah. So it got super.
Oh, you must felt like that they were hiding that info from you?
Yeah, and
not that that's rational to think that, but I think I know how you arrive at that place. Yeah,
I mean, well, there's so many things at that point. Like everything's so dark. You know, you really don't even feel like anybody's advocating for you.
Yeah, you feel like you're being dismissed.
And you know, like obviously, like family's there, you know, for you, but when you're in that spot where, you know, they don't know, the doctors don't know, it's kind of just like, okay, like I am dying, and I just need to accept it, because nobody's figuring this out, and I'm hurting. At this point, I'm waking up. You know, I would fall asleep in my boxers on top of covers, 3 fans, and I would somehow even work the air conditioner down to like 59 degrees, 61 degrees. Like I did not care about anything. I was burning up so bad. And I remember just like waking up at like 1 a.m. I'm like just pouring sweat, and I was sleeping pretty good, but like just, and I felt like that day was fine. Like I don't feel like I was in a bad mood or anything like that. Like I didn't go to bed mad, but I woke up, and it's so hard to describe. I literally, like, it felt like someone took my skin off, you know, dunked me in lava, put my skin back on, and just hit me with razor blades. And
Delightful.
dude, and then, you know, I would pretty much just, and she had no idea, you know, there's like 1,000 fans going on. You can't hear shit. I'm walking around the house, just pacing back and forth, just pretty much cussing, just pissed off.
Were you talking to the doctors about the physical pain? Did they recommend anything to abate that pain?
So when you went to that follow-up, you had already had your echocardiogram at that point, and everything was normal. Like,
Right.
You had your heart ultrasound when we followed up with that cardiologist, and she did order a stress test, but it was going to be like 2 months out.
Right. So, and that's another thing. Like, all these tests are essentially like 2 months out.
Yeah, depending on the test, for sure.
Right. And I didn't have a primary. So that is, if there's anything to learn from this, if you don't have a primary, get a primary. Because
Yeah.
when I called to get a primary, they're like, oh, you know, I called probably 20 plus people, and I would say about 80% of them was like, we're not taking new patients. And the rest were like, oh, it'll be like April or May. And I remember just like, well, they're like, you know, do you want me to put you down? I'm like, no, I'll be dead by then. So don't worry about it. And they're like, you know, they're kind of like laughing. They're like, oh, okay, well, you know, hopefully not. And I'm like, you don't even understand. And at this point, I'm staying up like 38 hours straight, just burning.
So from physical pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight burning.
Did at any point in time you think to maybe go to the hospital and talk to them about that?
No, I mean, yeah, so it did come to that, but I was, and we'll get to there, but I was just like, I mean, what are they going to do for you? I mean, they literally, I had talked to them about it before. It wasn't to this like severe, but they had no idea. And so then we get to the first week of December, and I text Paige. Well, actually, so I took the dog out. Still not working. I mean, I can't. Like, I was having some good days.
Mm-hmm.
When I say good days, I can do the dishes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much just laying on the couch. And I let my dog out, and I'm talking about the slightest bump. Here goes my world spinning again. And I'm like, holy shit, what is going on? It's so hard to explain. And I'm like, I know my neighbors had to think like I'm completely cracked out. I'm like grabbing on to the Traeger. I'm like walking my way into.
So you're stumbling, essentially.
Pretty much. Like, I'm just trying to find my way to the door because like my world is just all over the place. And finally make it inside, get him inside. And, you know, small steps, grabbing a wall, you know, grabbing the island, get to the couch. And I remember like texting Paige, and I'm like, this is the day. This is the day I'm going to die, because I don't know if my body can take it any longer. I mean, I was hurting that bad. And so Paige had reached out to a family friend who knew somebody, another cardiologist, and they're like, let me take a look at it. So, right. So they, you know, let me go back, look at everything he's went through, paperwork wise.
So like a third party is going to take a look at everything, all the work that everybody else has done.
Right.
Give you a different assessment.
So he essentially, like, as much as I want to give him a shout out, definitely not going to.
Yep.
But he's pretty much, a higher level. And he's like, let me look at it. And they were just kind of like, can he get to the ER like now? And, Paige texted me like, can you get to the ER now? And I was like, well, I most definitely can't drive. Because, I feel drunk. I'm so just world spinning. And she's like, hey, like, mom's coming to get you, and she's going to take you down there. So, and they're like, they're already going to know, they're waiting for you. This is probably like...
Is this because they heard from this other doctor?
Yeah, so he had called them and told them, basically, like, he was going to be there, but he had to be in a meeting. So, like, he was running everything through, like, one of his right-hand men, but was, like, doing it through text and was, telling them basically what to do, which they pretty much knew what they were doing. They did know what they were doing.
Is this the same hospital you've been to before or a new hospital?
So this is one of the same branches as the first time I went to the ER. It's just downtown, different location.
Gotcha.
It's like the big ER. So I get there and they're like, how can I help you? And I'm like, hey, Chase, Dr. So-and-so told me to come down here. And they're like, okay, do you care to take a seat right here for me? Let's check your blood pressure. And I was like, cool. And so I check my blood pressure, and this nurse is kind of frantic, like, hey, tell everyone he is here. They just kept saying, he is here. And then you could hear him through the hospital. Hey, he's here, let's go. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, what are you not telling me?
What in the world is going on? So I go in this little like triage room. It's just me and another nurse. She's like, if you don't mind, take off your shirt. We're gonna run EKG. And at that point, it's just me, my mother-in-law, and this nurse. And the next thing I know, there is like 20 of us in this small room, and everyone is asking 1,000 questions. And I'm trying not to talk because I thought like with EKG you're not supposed to talk or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're like, come on, we gotta know something. Like you gotta tell us. And she's answering like to these 4 people. I'm answering for this section of people. And then it's like, then they're swapping, asking questions, and it's a lot of chaos. And they're like, hey, we're gonna take you to this next room. It's literally, you're going to go through this door and you're going to be in that room. And they were like, it's going to feel like, you've been kicked in the chest, what we're going to do to you. And I kind of like, at that point, I was just kind of like leaned up against the wall. And I kind of like just made a joke. And I was like, oh, so basically what I've been through for the last 3 months is what you're saying. So I got this. And boy, did I eat those words. The nurse asked me, she's like, do you need a wheelchair? And I just like smiled at her and I'm like, I'm okay. I can walk. And so I walk in this room. There's probably like 6 nurses, and they're like, who are you? And I kind of like look behind me, and there's not really anybody, I guess, like, because like my mother-in-law was still talking to them, and they're pretty much, who are you? And I was like, I'm Chase. They told me to walk in here. They're like, you're the dude that has a 206 heart rate, and you ran a 13-beat run of non-sustained VTAC. Like, that's you? And I was like, and I didn't know about that part.
That's why they thought that you couldn't walk.
Right. They're
right.
like, and they're like, why are you in a wheel, or like, why are you not in a wheelchair?
Yeah.
Why are you walking? And I'm like trying to make light of it. I was like,
I wonder why they didn't tell you. I almost feel like they didn't tell you because they thought it would scare the shit out of you. Which
yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily consider that to be a very good moral decision, because you should at least be able to know what's going on in your own body.
I mean, if you saw the room I was in, it was like maybe a third of this. I mean, it was literally enough for a hospital bed. And so I walk in, they're like, please, like, you need to sit on this bed. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, they're worried you're going to keel over, man.
And I was like, what is going on? They're like everything's gonna be okay. We're gonna run a couple tests. Like he described in there, it's gonna feel like you've been kicked in the chest. No big deal. Okay, cool. And at this point, I was willing to do whatever. I was hurting so bad. And again, here comes, the room was literally 20 people. I don't even know how that many people could fit in a room. If something honestly would have went bad, I don't know how they would have got out because they would have stumbled on each other.
So what did they do to you in that room?
So there was I think 2 EKGs hooked up to me. I feel like I had IVs going every which way. And
are they explaining what they're doing to you?
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of going to that 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so much is going on.
Overwhelming, yeah.
And it's like, and I'm in this small room. It's like, holy cow. This is real. I don't know what's going on, but this is real. And so they were like, we're going to do the adenosine trial on you. This is what...
What'd you just call it?
The adenosine... Is that right? Adenosine trial.
Okay.
And you can look it up on YouTube. In my experience, the person on YouTube is two totally,
different things. And the first time they're like, we're going to start him off at 12 milligrams. And, I'm like holding this nurse's hand. She's like, just grab my arm or my hand. You're going to feel a little pain. It is what it is. And at that point, my heart rate is through the roof. They're like, but you're going to have to get your heart rate down. You're going to have to breathe. And I'm like, I'm breathing like this is it. This is all I have. And that takes off. And the best way to explain my experience, and of course, I can only speak of my experience with this, it felt like someone was grabbing my skin from my back and was just trying to rip my skin off my back while putting their hand inside my chest and pulling my heart out. So is it a stress test for your heart?
Essentially, it's a nuclear test, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
So, and I think there's multiple nuclear tests. And so, they're yelling at me. They're like, good. They're screaming like, push the bag. They're trying to get that drip. So essentially what it does is it stops your heart for 6 seconds. What they're trying to see is your heart. They want to see, because kind of like how and it's really hard for me to explain it, but it's like electrical. They're trying to see, is it sparking off when it's supposed to? So, I'm sitting there and I have no pain medicine or anything in my body. And it also, like, with that feeling, it kind of feels like, and maybe you feel this, like, more so, I guess, like, for you, like, base jumping, like, when you jump that initial, like, grab to your stomach.
The rising of your stomach out of your chest? Yeah.
And for me, like, a roller coaster.
Yep.
So it's kind of like that. And, and it felt like they were just, like, sucking the heart out of me. And I feel like my chest, like, I'm about to, like, bend completely backwards. And, everybody's screaming every which way. And what I did notice is they didn't, what I think, and I guess I'll tell you this in a minute, but so that first one was so rough. It made from here at my neckline, in my chest, all the way down to my toes, numb. Could not feel my body. And my face was uncontrollably just slapping back and forth. And, my mother-in-law is just in there and she's like, you okay? Are you okay? And the whole time I'm just trying, I'm trying my hardest to, one, not cry, right? And two, I'm trying not to say every cuss word that is imaginable because it hurts so bad. And it wouldn't even matter. I couldn't even say anything. It hurts so bad. And they give me like 15 minutes to cool down. Constantly people are rotating in that 15 minutes like, hey, you good? And I'm still like, my face is like, keep slapping back. And finally, like after like, I don't know how many minutes, but it seemed like forever. I just chilled out, like super chill, or chilling. And, they get me a blanket but I'm also burning up. So they put a cold wet rag on top of my face. My mother-in-law was asking me a bunch of questions like, is that good? Are you okay? Like I know that hurt. Like they should have got it. And I was like, I don't care. I don't care what happens from here on out. Do not let them do that again. Do not let them do that again. And so here they come rolling in. They're like, dude, we're sorry. What we were looking for, we didn't get. We're going to have to do it again. And we're going to have to bump up the dose. And I just remember going, just like, fuck. And I just kind of, and like one of the nurses that was like walking in, he's like laughing. He's like, his heart rate's, it's going right back up. And I heard him say that and I kind of like looked back up. And at this point, like, I'm like maybe around like 160. And I don't know what it went to, during that or whatever. But they're like, that's not what we were looking for in the EKG. So it was not what we wanted. So they hooked me back up. And at this point, like, I'm pretty pissed. I'm like, dude, at this point, I honestly did not know my heart was going to take it again. I remember just like praying, like, if this is it, let it be peaceful, let it be quick. I don't know how else to explain it. And, they did, I think, 16 milligrams of the adenosine trial. So they bumped it up. They hit me with that, and I was getting more effects of the medicine than I was like the actual, like what they were hoping, like what most people would get out of it, I guess. And this time and what I was going to say before, so this time they held my arm up. And I think the reason why it hurt so bad the first time is because they didn't hold my arm up and it was a slow drip. So I think it lasted like more than 6 seconds. And I don't know. I just know the next time they hold my arm up. And I was like, this is
different.
And I was like, well, this is new. But I wouldn't say different. It was actually the second time, they're like, all right, here we go. We're going to do it again. And they like count it down. And, they're screaming, push the bag. Because they're trying to get that, I guess, like drain the fluids to like flush it out. They want it to hit and they want to push it out of you. My body essentially went numb right then. My body is in shock. I feel like I'm in a cartoon, like tornado. My head's all over the place. I cannot control my neck. I'm just like sitting there slapping back and forth on the bed. My feet literally feel like at any given time I'm about to do a V up and my feet are coming from my face like they're going to slap it. And that one was super, super rough. Way worse than the first one. And again, they're pissed. They're like, he's just getting the effects. Like, we're going to have to do something. So they ended up giving me a muscle relaxer. And like I said, the first time they gave me like 15 minutes. This time, it was enough to, hey, go get more people and bring them in here. And I guess in case like something was to happen. And, and I could see outside the door, there's so many people. There's nurses rotating. Some are like, I don't want to watch this anymore. And somebody's rotating in for them. And they're just in the back just watching. They're like, they don't want anything to do with this. And at that point, I was just like, holy shit. Like, these people, you can see it on their face. Like, what they're watching is not normal.
Did you ever consider telling them to stop?
So I told them, multiple times, and they would come in. They're like, we're sorry. We have to do it again. And my cardiologist now, is texting them saying like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry I'm not there. Please tell my mother-in-law, because she was like advocating for like, I don't think he can do it again. And they're like, we're going to have to do it this third time. And they're like, they're trying to think outside the box. What can we do to make this less? And they're like, they didn't really want to run it with a muscle relaxer. They wanted it to be as natural as possible. Even though that whole thing is nothing about it is natural. And so we do it again with the muscle relaxer at 16 again, 60 milligrams. And I still, neck down, numb, the whole feeling. I didn't have that crazy, I didn't feel like I was going to do a V up or my feet were going to smack me in the face like the second time. And don't get me wrong, it hurt so bad, but like my body, I guess because the muscle relaxer, it did bring my heart rate down. And I just remember like looking at him at the EKG, and he's like, all right, squeeze back. And I'm like staring at him, and I'm like, dude, for God's sake, make sure this works. I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know if I can do it again. And he's pulling the printer paper out, and he's like, and I'm sitting there, just like, and just like crunching up, super numb. And I'm at this point, my face is trying to slap again. And I'm just like holding it, just kind of like, and I'm just shaking. And he's like, we got it. And he just screams, damn it, we don't have it. And I just remember like everybody in that room just like, fuck, I don't know if I can watch this again.
How many times did they do this to you?
This was the third time.
How many times total did they do it?
3 times. So they walked out. And again, I'm the same kind of stuff, numb. I'm hurting, obviously. And I remember just like fighting tears. My mother-in-law is like asking me questions, and she's just like, I don't know if they're going to do that to you again. But if they say they're going to need to, you're, at the end of the day, this is your body. Like, do you want to do it again? And I remember just holding back tears and just being like, in my head, I'm just like, fuck it. Let's do it again. And when they walked in, they just kind of like had their head down. And I was just like, I'm like, dude, let's do it again. Let's do it for the 4th time. And I know they kind of just joked, and they're like, you're a professional now. Like, they're like, dude, you took it like a champ. They're like, we think we actually have enough once we looked at it.
What the fuck were they looking for?
So that's the hard part, right? And the EKGs with the squiggly lines, I have no idea. I cannot explain it at all. But whatever they're looking for, and I'm sure people reach out and let us know, but they're looking for basically, I think,
Call it a pathway.
okay, so they're making sure there's no like clogs essentially.
In your heart.
In my heart.
Or electrical, irregularities.
Right. So.
Or electrical irregularities.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
What you're describing, everything leading up to this point, is unbelievable. Did this process change the way that they were treating your symptoms or how they were providing medical care to you?
I feel like essentially like that whole night I feel like most people don't have, 20 people in a room taking care of you. So I feel like they honestly were doing what they needed to do.
Yeah.
And they, were taking really good care of me. One of the guys, he had asked me, he's like, yo, dude, I'm going upstairs. You want any snacks? You want a Powerade? You want a Sprite? What do you want? And I was like, nothing. I just don't want to be a burden anymore.
How about,
And
you said you don't want to be a burden anymore?
yeah, I mean,
I hope that you have learned through this process
I've learned-
that your head is actually, in my opinion, in the wrong spot. At some point in time, you're going to have to change that mindset.
oh, for sure.
Not overall, maybe
Right.
just in the perspective of,
Well, also,
you're at a place where you're at your house thinking that you're going to die, and then you get to the hospital and
for
you're
sure.
telling them that you don't want to be a
Well,
burden.
also though, like, I'm seeing people getting rolled in from like car crashes,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
That's why they have multiple people on staff.
I know, but it was just so that whole day
I get it. I'm just
was just so overwhelming, and the last thing I wanted was someone to go get me a snack,
yeah. No, I get it. I'm just saying.
and
Oftentimes, people's largest impediment
right.
is themselves.
Oh, for sure. It was definitely, an ego check, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm just some tough dude. I just honestly, like, I didn't want to be a burden, because it sucked. It was the lowest point in my life.
Yeah.
Leading up to it, after, and the dude was, he was so cool. He's like, I'm not fucking leaving this room until you tell me what you want to drink, because you just went to that and you're going to get a drink. Like, you paid so much money for all this, like, you're going to get a Sprite or something. And I was like, sure, like, surprise me. So he comes down and he gave me like a Sprite and a water. I took the water, and we just talked, and one of the nurses, she came in, and she was not with the cardio team. She was strictly like my ER nurse. And at this point, my blood pressure was like 206 over like 102, I think. I think that's what they said. And she was like, I really think you should stay the night here tonight. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to be near y'all. Like, what I just went through, like, I just want to go home. Because to be honest, I had no idea that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I did not know I was going to make it out. Like, that's how bad it hurt. And she's like, okay, well, your blood pressure's this, and, we can give you some medicine. I'm going to go talk to the cardiology team, and if they think you're good, we're going to send you home. But she's like, my recommendation is, I think you should stay. And, she kept saying the blood pressure, and I'm like, how many people go through this and your blood pressure's not high? How many times are you tortured? It literally felt like I was being tortured, and your blood pressure's normal. And I know she was worried about me. I don't think she wanted me to have a stroke or whatever. Mm-hmm. But at that point, like, I feel like the quickest way to calm me down would obviously be some medicine, and also getting out of there and going home. And, she went back and talked to the cardiology team, and they're like, okay, they said, from a cardiology standpoint, they're not worried about you. They think you'll be fine overnight. I'm going to give you medicine, and we're going to lower your blood pressure, and we're going to send you home, and then you have a follow-up tomorrow with the doctor that was, texting
Mm-hmm.
and doing the whole thing. So Paige and I get there, and, he...
To the follow-up.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And it was a really good follow-up. He basically just laid out there, was like, hey, like, because we didn't know what happened. Like, we don't know anything. From the point where they said, damn it, we don't have it, mm-hmm. to the time I said, I'm ready for the fourth time. Let's do it again. And so he's explained everything to us. He's like, hey, this is what we think. We think you have atrial tachycardia, he was like, in most scenarios, it would come from a virus. But in this case, you've had, 5 to 6 tests. You've had antibody tests. He's like, I don't know how it'd be anything else. Right.
Other than the vaccine.
Right.
So is that the first time that one of the medical professionals was potentially connecting the dots between what was happening to you and what caused it?
Right. And I really want to lay it out there. Like, I know like others have had problems, but like, truthfully, I don't know if it's like just where I'm from, like if people were just more inclined to look at it like, okay, it's a possibility. Like, it was more so like nobody had an ego really like, oh, I'm not worried that it's, it is the vaccine. I bet it's something else. Like, they were pretty like, I don't see how it's anything else. Like, they were being straightforward. So then
at this point, they're being straightforward.
Right. And I feel like for the most part, for like, and again, like, I feel like no one's right out of the gate going to be like, oh yeah, it's from the vaccine. Because one, they don't want to scare you. And two, I think that's a big observation to just blatantly say that.
Yeah.
Without study,
And do the best of your ability to remove all the variables too. Yeah.
Right. So, and so, I got put on flecainide, which is a antiarrhythmic medicine. So basically what it was supposed to do was basically stop my heart rate from going way up, having these palpitations.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're pretty stoked. We're like, okay, we found an answer. And
This is mid-December.
yeah, this is mid-December, and we go the whole month just trying that. He's like, this should, you should feel something.
Did you?
No.
So none of the symptoms really changed?
No. And so then they were like, because I was having such a hard time, and I feel like I've cut so much out of a lot of the story, but like a lot of the symptoms of that I was telling them, they were like, maybe you have POTS. So basically, what POTS is your heart rate and your blood pressure, like when you stand up or when you're laying down to stand up, it tries to stay at a healthy balance.
Mm-hmm.
But mine's not doing that. One is like overpowering the other.
Did they have any explanation as to why that would just start all of a sudden?
So a lot of people do get POTS from the vaccine. Like, it's pretty common.
Okay.
And it sucks.
That's the first I've ever heard of that term associated with the
same.
vaccine.
I had no idea what it was. So then there's basically nothing. I think there's some medicine, but from like what I've heard, what they were saying, like the medicine is kind of useless.
Okay.
In a sense. So they bumped my sodium intake. He's like, just whatever you do, whatever you're eating, I don't care what you do, what you're eating, dump salt.
Crush salt.
Eat as much salt as you can. And like,
Did that help?
no, I think it made things worse. And I also was taking 3 ibuprofens a day. Or I'm sorry, I was taking 800 milligrams. Right.
3 times.
Yeah, 800 milligrams 3 times a day. On top of that. For a week. Just to see if that helped. And by the time that we got to Christmas, like, I was doing so well all day.
So the medicine and the ibuprofen and the sodium, it was making a difference.
Not really.
I thought you just said you were feeling...
So I think like spirit-wise.
Got you. Okay.
It's Christmas Day. I'm trying my hardest. You know, I just want to have a good day.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so long since I've had a good day, and I want to go all the way through this day. So, you know, we go to the in-laws, we, you know, open presents there, eat breakfast, and I'm feeling just, you know, I'm feeling kind of sick. I kind of can feel it's creeping on, and I'm like, maybe I can sneak all the way through. Maybe. And so, you know, I go to my parents' house after that. You know, really good. You know, we're joking, having a good time, just enjoying each other. And then we go back to the in-laws for dinner. And I would say, like, breakfast, you know, it was equally just as good at my parents'. I think also, like, the reason why it was kind of tough that morning was because I didn't sleep good. And it was just kind of like, I was kind of dragging.
Yeah.
And so Christmas night, you know, we showed up right in time for dinner. And, you know, I'm on the way down to, you know, her parents' house. I'm like, I'm so hungry. I cannot wait to crush food. I need some food in my body fast. You know, we sit down, you know, I make this plate, and I can just feel my body just shaking. I'm trying to eat. At this point, I have none whatsoever, no appetite. My body's shaking. You know, my world's starting to spin. You know, my heart rate just sitting there is you know, way up at this point. And I kind of like, they're like, just go lay down, go lay in the gas bed or whatever. And I'm like, no, like, I just want to enjoy the dinner. Like, let me just sit here, and like, I'm probably not gonna say anything, but I just want to sit here, and like, we're gonna finish this dinner. And I remember just like Paige starting to cry. It was just kind of like, I think we're going to bounce. I think we're going to take you home. And that, you know, obviously there was a lot of ego checks before that. I mean, it was constantly, but this one, it was really tough. You know, it's Christmas Day. I just ruined dinner for everyone. Nobody wants to eat now. Everybody thinks I'm about to pass out. And I just remember, you know, on the way back to our house, the whole entire time, like, just sitting there, just waiting to vomit. I have a trash bag ready. And, yeah, get back to the couch and probably lay there for like 4 hours or so. And then I start feeling just a little bit better. And I'm like, how does this come and go? Like, how does this just choose? You know, 1 minute I'm literally, it feels like, you know, I'm knocking on the door for death.
Yeah, it sounds like you're standing on death door one minute.
And then
the
next minute it's like, and that's the hardest thing, you know, for a lot of people that I've talked to that's going through this. It's so tough mentally, because one day you're one step forward, next day you're 3 steps back. You just have no idea. And in the beginning of all this, it was super, super tough on me. And I've talked to a couple other athletes as well that, you know, pro athletes or whatever they're you know, climbing or whatever, and they're all, you know, the same mindset. Like, in the beginning, it was so tough because, like, you think you're just being a bitch about it. You know, in my head, I was kind of like, really? Like, I hope you enjoy that your wife is bringing in all the money and you're just sitting at home watching TV. Like, are you proud of yourself?
It's a rough headspace to be in, but I understand what you're saying.
And that's where a lot of us, like I said, like we have family, but we're so disconnected. And a lot of it, like I don't really, and I'm not really an angry type person at all. Like I'm pretty happy-go-lucky. But the pain brings so much rage. The thoughts in your head, like it's almost like the physical pain is tough.
Yeah.
But the mental pain, like, you know, I can explain it to you, but like, I don't know if you really get the sense of it. The same way that someone else is going through it, I kind of get where they're coming from, but I don't. It's so dark.
If you want to actually break people, a human being, it has to be a combination of physical and mental. The physical alone won't do it, but the mental aspect will fucking crack them. So I know what you're talking about. What, between that day on Christmas Day and today, so we're sitting down February 15th. Hope everybody had a good Valentine's Day yesterday. Have you found a medical professional that can explain what is going on with you?
So I'm still with the same cardiologist.
Mm-hmm. Have they done anything drastically differently since that crazy stress test?
So it's really, so now they are treating me. So mid-January, so it was literally like a month on the money with the flecainide or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so now they put me on steroids. And
they took you off the flecainide.
Right. And they
off the flecainide.
And they took me off the flecainide, yeah. So
steroids making any impact?
You know, I feel like I was up moving around a lot more. I feel like that was the starting line of, okay, I can put dishes in the dishwasher. Mm-hmm. I can make little steps.
Like, so what you seem to be describing is an incremental, microscopic incremental, maybe towards what could be considered improvement.
Right.
Okay.
And then, you know, right off that, I'm now put on anti-inflammatory medicine.
Steroids for a week.
Right. Steroids for a week. And then as soon as that was over, I think it was like pretty much, it was about like right after. And so they put me on the inflammation medicine. And they also, they put me on, I'm kind of on a beta blocker, like today, because, you know, walking around doing this, like I have to. Like if I was sitting here talking to you, especially, you know, probably in the beginning, the, you know, excitement or just the adrenaline dumps. The adrenaline dumps are crazy. You know, it's constant. I mean, the best.
Are you continuing to see improvement?
Yes and no. Am I better than what I was in October or November?
Yeah, like at the lowest point. Okay,
for sure. Like I'm not back at work. I literally worked, or I'm sorry, I walked for the first time, like exercising. Walked a mile straight last week. That was the first time I've exercised since October.
Fuck.
And
is there a doctor that is telling you what it actually is that's going on in your body, or do they know?
So I have a couple tests as soon as we fly back. Mm-hmm. We will.
How about up until this point? Up until this point, have you had somebody who's told you?
It's tough, right? He wants to get to the bottom of it. Mm-hmm. You know, he's not giving up on me, which is super awesome. You know, if he hears this, I really hope he doesn't get mad for me saying this, but like, I've never had a doctor to give me his phone number and say, you know, if you need me, and this is from the first time I saw him in December, and he's like, if you need me, text me or call me. He's like, you know, obviously I deal with a lot of people, but like, text me.
Yeah.
Make sure you text me. And right after we talked, I guess it was that Monday. I think we both talked. It was that Wednesday. And I had a doctor's appointment that Thursday. And I was trying my hardest, but my heart rate was so far through the roof. And I didn't, not stress about anything. It just progressively gets worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was going to go back to the ER on Wednesday night. I'm texting him. And this is like 9, 10 o'clock at night. And, he texts back ASAP. Like, hey, man, like, if you're, like, I'm a medical professional. It's 10 o'clock at night. If you think you're dying, then go.
Sounds like good medical advice. Not that I'm a doctor, but.
Yeah, I mean, it is. But also, like, I want him to, it was more so like, I wanted the confirmation of, yeah, they're going to run these tests if you go or whatever.
Yeah.
And if that's not the case, I'm not going because they're going to tell me what they've told me the last, 3 times before.
So I'm not asking you to speak for the doc, but does he attribute what is happening with you to your exposure to the vaccine? Because causality is a bitch, right? Like you can't say maybe necessarily exactly. And
yeah,
one of the things I'll hear when people talk about reactions to the vaccine is they'll say, well, that probably would have happened to them if they were exposed to the virus as well. And maybe that's a totally legit statement. But again, I don't know necessarily either way. I'm just curious if the medical community, if they are comfortable or willing to say, hey, what you're dealing with right now is due to the fact that you were exposed to the vaccine.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for him.
Yeah,
and I think that's a really tough spot, and I think that's where we're at with all of this is, there's a couple things like I'm still working on, and as embarrassing as it is, like this whole thing is super embarrassing, but
there's actually 0% of this that's embarrassing.
The, unemployment, asking for that, I have to have doctor approval. For compensation, I have to have doctor approval.
The doctor has to underline it to
correct
show legitimacy of the claim.
And that doesn't even mean you get it.
Yeah.
And I say there's a compensation. There's a website.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what we're looking at, And it's a tough pill to swallow. But I mean, from an ego standpoint, 3 days after I take a vaccine, all these things match up. If next week, if I go in and he says, I don't think it's from the vaccine. Cool. I would probably honestly disagree.
Yeah.
I don't think this is all coincidental. And then somehow you're treating me, and I'm not saying he's saying this. This is theoretically.
Yeah.
You're treating me for myocarditis. And, I hope, next week I go and there is no myocarditis. That even makes my recovering path even easier, right? And the arrhythmia like that as well can cause the chest pain and all the symptoms I'm having.
Well, let me ask you
chances are probably not, but
yeah, let me ask you this. Have you in going through this process, have you met other people that are also experiencing the same thing?
Oh, for sure.
And what I would say, not only the same symptoms, but onset due to similar experiences.
To be honest, like I had a really tough time coming out and talking about it in general, and not really the backlash, because at the end of the day, like this is just what it is. This is reality. I didn't cause this. I didn't want this to happen. I didn't wish it to happen. But some of these people in some of these states, like their doctors are just saying like, you're just anxious. And they're saying, I think I'm, 1 minute they're saying you might have brain bleedage. And then they get sent to someone else and they're being, you just have anxiety. And it's, it's really tough to talk for them, because I can tell their story.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious if you've encountered people who have a similar story as to yours.
Yeah.
Fuck. Have you, I mean, what is your experience when you've tried to talk openly about this? Do you find that they are willing to at least consider the fact that the vaccine could have had a negative consequence, or do they want to avoid that level of conversation or association?
In all honesty, I think for the most part, people are really good, or they really just have a fake face about it. I think a lot of people still, though, it's so political, and some of my friends, they're on both sides. I'm not really a political person, but you kind of can see on their faces when you try to explain it, and it's like, I doubt that, and it's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow, and maybe I'm just overlooking, and I hope that's the case. But I think for the most part, for like where we live, which I haven't really, to be honest with you, like maybe less than 10 people knew before I posted, and I was getting texts like crazy, like, hey, had no idea that was happening. Why wouldn't you tell me? I would have been here for you for sure.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you explain to somebody that your body is so in shock? There's, and I say this respectfully, there's older ladies passing you in the grocery store and looking back at you like you're a prick.
So I met you at the street corner where I meet all the guests, and walking up here, you're walking slowly. I mean, yeah. I recognize that obviously, and I was asking you like stairs or elevator, and you're like, absolutely the stairs. I'm like, fuck you, dude. We're getting in the elevator. Like, it certainly has a physical impact on you for sure.
Right.
Did the doc? God, and again, I feel like, are they giving you a path forward, what they think it's going to look like? Do they feel like that what you are going through, you can fully recover from?
Yeah. It's hard for them to say, will it be a month from now? Will it be a year from now? They don't know. And I think a lot has to do with, when I go and get checked for inflammation, just to see where I'm at. Because they already, they check my arteries, and they pretty much tell me, they're like, you're 24. It's almost, even if you were the most unhealthiest human being, it'd be almost impossible. That was good. A lot of things were good. They definitely have a plan A. I'll say that. We have a plan A. But if plan A doesn't work, I think it's right back to the board. And a lot of it has to do, if it is, a lot of it has to do with myocarditis. It's just a waiting game. From what it's so hard, from what I've heard from others and just in general, that it's hard to diagnose myocarditis, because
that's the fluid and swelling around your heart, correct? Myocarditis?
Inflammation of the internal layer of the heart.
Yeah.
I feel like I gave exactly that medical description.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're spot on.
Yeah, no, people can look up myocarditis, and which I'm going to actually after this as well. So I'm sure that I am positive of what it actually means.
And also when they said the atrial tachycardia, so basically with that, they were saying that I think the top of my heart, is that correct? Top. So not a medical student here, but
that's a medical term. The top.
Yeah,
that's one of the four sections of the heart.
For sure.
Bottom, left, and right are the other
three. The northern part of the heart is beating really fast, faster than the rest of the heart. So that's where they're at. Let
me ask you this. Do you think, or do you feel, and this is, of course, based on just your opinion, that what you are experiencing is due to the exposure to the vaccine?
I do.
So,
it'd be hard to,
connect the dots to something else.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, and this is based off of your feeling of that. How do you feel then about this emphasis and push for everybody to go out and get the vaccine? Given your own experience, because they definitely, and I'm not against the message of, hey, the vaccine is safe and efficacious. I think there probably should be an asterisk associated with that, but you can't just swipe under the table the other potential consequences that may come from it. So, and I'm just out of curiosity, I mean, like, you're obviously dealing still in the throes of working yourself through a horrendous situation. How does that strike you when you see that messaging, when you hear that?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, it was still from, what I thought about before. I don't think there ever should be a mandate, especially when, if something like this happens, who bails you out? Who's there for you when your wife comes home from work crying and you can't do anything about it because you're pretty much down the couch? Who's gonna take care of that? Who's gonna take care of bills? If I'd have known more, I don't know if I would have taken that risk. And not just a health risk. I mean, what it does to you, mentally, physically.
Yeah.
As a new marriage.
Yeah, you're in the trenches for sure, man.
Financially, that's tough. It's definitely tough. I mean, it's tough for anybody, but for someone that, and I won't say I had it figured out by no means, but I mean, I'm a normal American. I was living an okay dream.
Well, and again, this is where I think it's important to point out that there's nothing to say that if you would have been exposed to COVID, you wouldn't have had exactly the same symptoms.
Right.
Right. And so, and I'm as far from an anti-vaccine as you could possibly be. I'm just really, really anti-uninformed decision. And I think it's very important that people understand the potential risk, but then also when you look at risk, right, you have to look at, is it 50 out of 100? Is it, 1 out of 100?
Right.
Like, not all risk is the same. But how can you possibly make an educated decision if you don't at least explore the potential consequences?
Well, that's the problem, is you have to explore.
Yeah.
And you really can go and you can look at it, and chances are you're not going to see, my face on an article saying this is what this dude's been through.
Well, I think that's why I wanted to reach out and talk to you. I'm not saying that people, if they take the vaccine, that this is what's going to happen.
Right.
What I'm saying is it's important to show all sides of a conversation and a discussion. And that way people can make the most educated decision possible. I'm not trying to sway anybody's opinion on the topic of COVID or the vaccine.
Right. And obviously, like, COVID is real.
COVID is real. I've had it twice.
Yeah.
I've had it twice.
Knock on wood, I've never had it.
Yeah.
And, before I wasn't worried about it. Now it's like, well, shit.
Yeah.
I did everything before to make sure, I wouldn't get it. And if I did get it, chances are my odds were pretty high. Now it's like I did what I was told. And now it's like I've taken 5 steps back, and it's like now I have to be a little worried.
Well, what you're going through could have potentially lifelong consequences. I mean, let's be honest. I think the most important thing that our country, the leaders in our country, that they could have said that they didn't was, we are not sure. This is the best information we have right now. And as it changes, we will change and update you as we know it. This is the best path forward based on the information we have now. It's this hesitance to not say the words, I don't know, or I'm not sure. And I think that gets very dangerous, especially when you start pushing people, large groups of people, and then trying to force compliance through odd mandates or restrictions.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, I don't know, because I don't think that your experience is unique by any stretch. I think it's hard to get people to talk about those experiences. And that's why I think it was important to sit down and have a conversation with you about what you went through. Because For somebody to say that that's not real, I mean, fuck right off. What you're you can see the pain in your face.
Right.
I can see you trying to like put together all of the pieces of shit. Did this happen first? Did that happen first? Was it on this visit?
Right.
Was it that? Like that shit's real.
And I know like Paige has had to like come in so many times, but I've been on the couch for so long. Like at some point, like your brain, honestly, like it goes dull.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just, and to be really honest, like I haven't felt even remotely normal until 3 weeks ago. That's a long time.
That's an incredibly long time, and I'm glad to hear that you are at least trending back in that direction.
For sure. And well, also the hardest part was, so I kind of deleted social media, like the apps. I was kind of already in that phase, but when I was going through this, I didn't see what I'm seeing now.
What do you mean?
Like, as in, like, all these Instagram pages that are advocating for people. I didn't have social media, so I felt
alone.
Man, It was dark. You know, I only knew 2 other people. Somebody actually sent me an article of, you know, a professional mountain biker. You know, I reached out to him and his girlfriend on Instagram, and they were just kind of like, you seem like you're going through the same thing, and this is what we did, and I hope you get better, but that's really the only thing I can do for you. Like, I hope someone's there for you. And the other person I met, like his family, he's a senior in high school, and he's going through this. And they messaged me and was just like, hey, like I really hope someone's there for you. And you don't really understand what that means until you're really in the thick of it.
Yeah.
And you know, it's tough, it's dark.
And I think it's essential that those people have a voice as well.
For sure.
It can't be ignored. And again, I'm not trying to sway anybody's opinion on any topic, but you have to at least look for both sides of the conversation.
For sure. And a lot of it, you know, I'll say social media platforms. We'll keep it as that. But, you know, the fact that you cannot spell out vaccine.
Is that what? Okay.
Yeah.
That's why people will put the @ sign in it, or.
That is the craziest thing. If you told me 5 years ago that you couldn't say vaccine,
yeah,
I would have laughed in your face and been like, dude, this is America.
Well, I think, God, I would like to think that the people that make those decisions are saying, or at least thinking about it from the perspective of, and not that this is a correct perspective, but like for the greater good, we have to do this because we don't want anybody to push misinformation and disinformation, which I really think those should be really further defined instead of thrown around as a blanket term. I would like to think that they are at least pure in their intent to do that. But I think in the future, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, looking back at what messages were or conversation points were suppressed and how far one particular narrative was pushed, I don't know if it's going to be judged so hot. I think any time that you try to censor, what I'll say is this. I haven't at least found in my life yet a situation where censorship did something positive,
right?
Where it instilled more faith than it stole.
For sure. And people that are injured like me, it sucks because, you know, you have people from all types of backgrounds, right? Religion, political party, everything. And to be tossed in the middle of this political war when people are hurting, you know, it's pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
You know, it sucks. And whatever, like, I've kind of just came to grip with it, like, you know, cool. If the battle is that it is rare, perfect. Have that. But don't say there's no one hurt.
And don't try to make it invisible.
Because there is people, and there's people way, way worse than me. And there's a couple things I read from people. They don't even know. like the last person I read, you know, her husband just died from myocarditis, just dropped dead.
Yeah.
And it's like, in reality, we, as bad as it sucks, you know, you got to have the feedback, you know,
Positive and negative.
Because we all want what's best for us. We all want to strive. You know, I don't think there's anyone out there, you know, whether they want the vaccine or they're against it. In reality, they would take the vaccine if they thought it was safe. I mean, that's plain as day. And again, I can just keep rambling about just how disgusting it is, just be tossed in the middle of everything.
What would you hope that people learn from your experience, from what you talked about? I mean, what would you hope that it could do or provide to somebody?
You know, that's a tough question. You know, if you've taken the vaccine, and I don't want to say this just real quick, then I'll answer that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had friends say, hey, I saw what happened, but I went ahead and took the vaccine. I hope you're not mad at me. And it's like, why am I mad at you?
Yeah.
I want you to be healthy. I want you to feel safe. And if that's the way,
Yeah,
then that's the way.
And make the best decision for the situation that you are in, of course.
And if you're healthy and nothing happens, great, right? And, you know, if you end up in my situation, I'm here for you. I'm here for you regardless, either way.
And I suspect your first words out of your mouth probably wouldn't be, I told you so.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of this is everyone just wants to be right. And I think that's where we've got all this wrong.
Yeah.
So
That's a good way to put that, actually. Not bad. What would you want people to take away from you?
I would just say, from like the vaccine standpoint, or
In general, the experience that you've just gone. So since October to mid-February, let me carry the one on that. That's almost 6 months. In the words I would choose to use after listening to you for the first time describe this, your fucking horrendous journey through medicine, pain, personal exploration. For people listening, what would you want them to know? And maybe there isn't an answer to that because you haven't been asked it yet, but
well, you know, and I fall in this category as well. I've been, someone woke up this morning complaining that they didn't want to do the dishes. They didn't want to take the trash out. They didn't want to make their bed.
When I didn't see you hiding in my bedroom this morning or kitchen.
Oh, I made the bed this morning in the hotel.
I was going to say, because I didn't feel like doing any of those things this morning, but I did, fuckers.
Good. Someone is in my spot.
Yeah.
Wanting to do that. And the coin, and that doesn't mean like I'm out of that equation. Somebody is wanting to do what I'm doing right now. They are in the thick of it, and they're,
It's a powerful tool to contextualize things like that. I think that's important. And honestly, you'll probably look back at this last 6 months for a very long period, if not your entire life, because it will provide context for appreciation, suffering, and everything in between those two things.
Yeah. I mean, from just doing dishes to hop in the shower and not feeling like you're going to pass out.
It's easy to bitch about wanting to do the dishes until you physically are at a place where it's impossible, and then you wish that you could. And
Paige makes fun of me, but that's like one of my only goals every day. As soon as I wake up, I read a little bit. I try to reach out to some of the other people, just let them know, like, today's a good day. If you're suffering, let me know. I'm here for you. But, and then I get up, I make the bed, and I just try to do as much as I can.
Yeah.
And that's really, that's it. That's all I can do.
If you're able to return back to baseline, I don't want to use the term normal because that's such a shifting.
I would take that though.
Yeah, well,
whatever it is.
How about return back to where you were prior to June of last year, whatever that might be, on whatever metric you're using. You think you'd still want to pursue the military? I mean, obviously this is the front sight focus for you right now, but assuming that you're able to make your way through it, you still plan on pursuing all the other goals in life that you have? Has it reframed maybe what you want to do with your life?
I said if I can be healthy by May, I'll run a half Ironman in October. I know Paige is a little against that, but I might take it easy, enjoy some of the things I missed out on, but eventually that's the route I want to go. I want to do half Ironman, full Ironman. I know it's a big task to ask, but I'm gonna, I guess, try to raise money for those that are hurting.
Yeah.
So.
And you can do that through the accomplishment of your own goals as well.
For sure.
Imagine how amazing that will feel when you are able to accomplish those things, especially through the lens of what you've gone through in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
It'll be a big thing for sure. I think it's important that you have a voice and you can talk about your experience. And maybe for some people, this episode, they'll be like, oh, I don't want to fucking hear about this. You propagandist, you're trying to, push an anti-vaccine narrative. And to me, that's the exact opposite. I think the experience that you went through, A, it's real, and B, it's important for people to hear that just because it's not necessarily happening in your life doesn't mean it's not happening very quietly to somebody very close to you.
For sure. And that, just the reality of it, it's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Especially when you sit here and you get, called an anti-vaxxer, and it's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I wanted the best just like everyone else.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Dude, your story is unbelievable.
Well, thank you.
Not as in like I don't believe it. It's
right.
It's God, I should have picked a different word. Your story is hard to listen to, the struggles. And I'll tell you why. I mean, maybe not as hard for most people. I really struggled with my journey through military medicine and the realization that a lot of the hospitals are training hospitals. Running joke is where do you go after you get all D's in medical school? The United States Navy? Or, what do you call the guy who graduates med school with all D's? You're like, oh, military doctor. And I've had some great experience with military doctors, but they're also just humans. And it's a practice, not a science. And they don't have all the answers, and it's human beings. And I was looking back on it now, I'm not going to say it was irresponsible. I think the people did the best that they could, but the amount of medications that I was on and the interactions and the fact that like my sister started finding some of those things as opposed to the doctors, and I'm like, this isn't working. Try this. It's still not working. I cannot sleep unless I pound an entire bottle of Captain Morgan. So I get it. That story of what you went through and the difficulties of that and feeling lost and feeling invisible and feeling like your opinion is diminished. It's rough, man. I get it. And I applaud you for continuing to put one foot in front of the other, because there are some people that will crack underneath that, and that's just, it sucks.
And they have, and honestly, like, they have every reason to. I mean, it's a really, really dark place. And I want to clarify as well, like, all of the, like what you said, like, I really think majority of all the nurses, all the doctors, they're just doing what they have in front of them.
They're not perfect.
They're not.
Yeah.
They're just trying to do their best for sure. And I just want to clarify that as well, that by no means am I against them, nor are they my enemies, obviously.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I want you guys to go and enjoy a little bit of Montana, so I'm going to let you guys get out of here. We've been at it for well over 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow.
How would you like to close this out?
I'm
hesitant to ask you how people can get in touch with you, because there's some fucking assholes out there who will try to get in touch with you. But I will let you close it out, Chase. First time on a podcast ever talking about a very personal experience and a topic that is contentious to say the least.
It's not on here after winning Kona Ironman. Not exactly, nor did I ever think I'd ever be on a podcast. Never even thought about it. But, I struggle sometimes like this. I try to, feel like my story's not enough. Like, so many others are struggling. But at the same time, like, my story's my story.
Yeah.
Regardless, whether I like it or not, that's it. And what I choose to do from here is really up to me. So, yeah.
Well, I'll close it by thanking both of you for your time. I know the travel is not the easiest. I know you're still dealing with what you had talked about for the last few hours. So it's awesome that you would choose to put that strain on yourself to come share the time with me. And I hope that the people listening can at least take the time to appreciate, maybe you don't have it so bad. And maybe just remember there might be some people out there dealing with stuff that you're very fortunate to avoid.
For sure. And myself as well.
Yeah. Cool. Well, on that note,
well, thank you.
Let's get you out of here. All right, man.
Cool.